Welcome to episode 67 of the Coast to Coast AFL podcast from Nick and Blaze. I am Blaze, your host, of course. And this week, we're getting ever closer to finals, we can tell. Some of the good teams definitely ramping up their potential chances, especially for the teams vying for, 5th and ninth. We know that's an insanely tight gap right now. Some of the other teams, it's a little bit concerning because it doesn't look like they're going to have decent run homes. Injury concerns, of course, for players all over the shop, especially for the quote unquote dead rubber game from Saturday night. We will talk about that, of course. But otherwise, we've got a fair amount to discuss. So let's jump into it. How are you doing, Mr. Cyril?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Yeah, still being a bit busy, just a few personal family things that have been keeping my nights occupied. But apart from that, yeah, had a pretty straightforward weekend. Another trip to Fremantle was fairly miserable, but school holiday, so it was pretty packed. Gonna see my friend this week. He's a Carlton supporter.
Very
It's his
nice.
birthday, so hopefully we can both sort of commiserate. Obviously, Port's still mathematical chances for the final, so I've not given up hope yet. But for Carlton, yeah, I don't think there's a calculator strong enough to figure out those permutations. I don't actually know if who's technically eliminated, but I would imagine Carlton are.
Carlton,
I don't know.
I would say everyone from about 11th to 18th. Oh, technically there's a mathematical chance from 11th. But I think
Yeah,
like 12th to 18th, I think it definitely ruled out. We'll look at that a bit later.
yeah, Sydney and Port need a win out basically, and even then, it probably might take some suspensions, percentage in other games.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that later. We're going to do a little run home. Don't know whether we'll include Port or Sydney, but might end up on this week's results. But how are you, Blazy?
I'm not doing too bad. Been a pretty busy weekend, so obviously I did my usual plasma donation Friday night. I also went out for dinner for Chicago style deep dish pizza at a place out in Fitzroy.
Saw that.
It's the only place that does it in Victoria, as far as we're aware, and it's really good. A little bit pricey, but it was expected, but it was really really good. Saturday, what did I do Saturday? I went out, but I am blanking on what I did. I did do something, and I went to the footy. That's right. I went to
Oh yeah,
I went to Richmond v Essendon, of course, and I also did a day stream as well. Did a brief little day stream.
yeah.
So that was all fun. Obviously, that's said dead rubber game, so we will talk about that, of course. And then on Sunday, I was awake at 5 a.m. because I was working a Marvel Rivals production for North America. So that was fun, tiring but fun. And then I went to see Superman. I loved it. Great movie. I understand why some people may not be happy with it, but I think for the most part, it ticks all the boxes as to what a Superman movie should be. So I'm very happy with that. And then yeah, just caught up on the rest of the games. Watch the Sunday games. Watch the Saints lose out by 5 points. Watch Port Adelaide. Barely survive, but that's how it is.
A win's a win, baby.
Exactly.
A win's a win.
That's what we're saying this week. A win is a win. So, speaking of wins, should we just jump straight into it?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, before we do, quick
Yes.
little update. I will be posting this on a socials update after we finish recording the episode. But just to mention here, we are now changing the release schedules of the episodes from Wednesdays to Tuesdays, still at the 1 p.m. AEST time slot, which is 11 a.m. WA time, 3 p.m. New Zealand time. You can extrapolate from there, where if you're listening around the world. We just think it's a lot easier for a lot of our information will be a lot more current, up to date, a little less outdated. Things like tribunals and stuff we will potentially miss, but other than that, we can always make a little brief social post about those, that sort of thing, if we need to.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
Well, it's
wanted
not
to.
like we ever recorded them anyway, because we were always recording on Monday. So
True. Unless we for some reason have to record on a Tuesday. That's that's neither
yeah, that's a
here nor there now.
update when you get that.
Yeah. So just wanted to let you all know. But now we will jump over to our first game of the day. Thursday Night Clash. Definitely not a blockbuster by any means. But it's Carlton and Brisbane at Marvel Stadium, where the Lions won by 37 points, with Carlton getting 9-12-66 to Brisbane's 15-13, 103.
Yeah, and I guess we've been alluding it to the last 2 weeks. It's another strong performance by the back half Lions, showing no signs of slowing up, this time shredding the hapless Carlton, who couldn't stop Brisbane's attack until junk time, as once again, bad ball use just became their Achilles heel, as heartbreakingly 5 points less than 80, 75 points came off turnover. I almost got my prediction right. Well, I was a lot closer than my other one, but we'll get to that
True.
one later.
True.
My bold prediction of the week. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't like everything went wrong for the Blues. I thought Pitnet had a really good game against the Big O and Darcy Fort. And Chincotta, I think he did a really good job at keeping Hugh McCluggage quiet. It's the first real time we've seen a run with role for McCluggage. And again, it's what we say. It's like, well, you tag one, a few others step up, and it's not that.
Yeah,
Big,
that's
but
when it comes to these elite midfield teams like Brisbane, like the Dogs, like
yeah.
Collingwood. You tag one player, the others are going to step up in their place.
But you could argue still that I don't think the Lions actually dominated all that much from stoppages. I'll just quickly get the stats up. For some reason, I had it on the wrong sheet. Yeah, the clearances were 29 Brisbane to 37 Carlton. So actually won strongly in that area. So maybe it works, maybe it didn't. But for Brisbane, I don't think they care because, again, when they're moving it that well from back half, it didn't really matter. And as for the Blues, it was mark or bust because they had 18 marks inside 50, which is great, but only 5 general play shots, which is their offensive Achilles heel.
Yeah.
As ground bowling forward 50 is just really lacking. We've mentioned before, it's really apparent how much they miss Owies and Kennedy, and obviously a bit baffling when they essentially gave both of them away, but it's a bit late in the season to be talking about this. They'll have to reset and find some other players, but in this game, yeah, it wasn't about.
Yeah, it wasn't really all that much else to really go on with in that midfield.
Yeah, but I will want to say the flip side of that stat is though was that it was a high amount of marks inside 50 conceded. So Carlton managed 45 entries, and because there was 18 marks, if you can do the math, which you don't need to because I've done it for you, 40% mark rate per inside 50, and that would be 18% higher than Carlton's average rate. So obviously Answorth going down early didn't help. Andrews surprisingly struggled on a lively but inaccurate Moya, or from the little bit I watched. I only really watched a bit late.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, Moya and Bailey, unfortunately, were the other heel for Brisbane in an otherwise pretty good game. Well, Moya for Carlton, Bailey for Brisbane, I should say.
Correct.
As both of them left a combined 26 points off the scoreboard. So had a bit of everything, but nothing that interesting this game.
I definitely think some teams could maybe take the idea that Carlton did have of tagging McCluggage, but maybe execute a little bit better. But again, it's a very finicky thing to think about because Brisbane know how to adapt, and that's one of their core strengths is their adaptability to what an opposing team throws at them specifically in attacking kind of manner. Because it's granted, most of the tags have always usually been on Neil or on Zorko, really. Like, you don't really tag anyone else.
Yeah. I think, like, the point is just, like, again, none of that really matters because, you know, as I said, like, with the clearances and all that, because Carlton just don't... I mean, obviously they had the defensive tag, but everything aside of that, because obviously Chincotta doesn't get too involved offensively. I think he only managed about 15 odd disposals, might be even less.
I think it was roughly that number.
No, it was 7 disposals. So
exactly. Half
that. Yeah, exactly. So -1 meters gained. So you know what I mean? It's just like Carlton their other defenders don't really run two way. Transition against them is very easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as I said, it's more about like the end goal that you want to create from this is stopping the forward half game.
Mm.
So 10-11-71 for Brisbane. A lot of that coming from turnovers. It's a bit of a moot point. As I said, you might have that win, but if your back line's turning the ball over and giving Brisbane some easy pinch offs into goals, then, as I said, it doesn't really matter what you do to McCluggage, Neil, hell, even if you want to tag Ashcroft, at the end of the day, you have to just have a balanced plan if you want to take on a team like Brisbane at this point in the season.
Yeah, again, we're pretty much hitting the tail end where the top four teams are at least trying to take the final top two spots, because we top spot pretty much still locked in. Collingwood have a fairly decent run home for them, so there's a fair chance that they will lock in first place. But second to fourth between at least those three top teams still up for grabs. And then obviously we got the fifth to eighth all still up in the air.
Yeah, well, obviously the biggest thing is the huge swing it gave to Brisbane, and what we're going to talk about next in Adelaide, where, as I said, you're starting to think of maybe a top two spot. And, you really want to be hitting your strides, because Brisbane, they're a bit behind on percentage, so they can't afford to drop a game. Whereas Adelaide, of course, hot on their tails, but half a game behind. So, as I said, Geelong Suns could make it, but you think one of those two would make the top two from here. Even, I guess, first is on the table, but so we won't get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of that. But from what I've seen, Brisbane more than any seem to be the most dominant team in this back half. Obviously, back half of the season, I guess. Yeah. Obviously, Collingwood's still been really good, but there's something ruthless about Brisbane. So I would say that they deserve to be in the same echelon as Collingwood from what we've seen, but we'll wait and see.
Yes, we will. But before we get on to anything else Collingwood related, I will talk about our individuals for this game. Starting with Charlie Cameron, he was very lively, up forward kicking 3-3 from 9 disposals, 4 marks, 6 score involvements, 11 pressure acts. Inaugural Robert Walls medalist, because this was also the inaugural Robert Walls game. Josh Dunkley won that medal. He was elite with pressure for Brisbane, finishing with 28 touches, 23 of them effective, equating to 82.1% efficiency, 14 contested possessions, 7 intercepts, 6 marks, 5 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 7 score involvements, 13 tackles, and 30 pressure acts. Darcy Wilmot was also phenomenal. He collected 31 disposals, 26 of them effective, equating to 83.9% efficiency, 8 contested possessions, 7 intercepts, 14 marks, 4 inside 50s, 3 clearances, 4 tackles, 15 pressure acts, and 450 metres gained. Over on the Carlton side, Mark Pitnet contended well against Darcy Ford and the Big O, as we have previously mentioned. He finished with 35 hitouts, 14 of them to advantage, and kicked 2 goals from 7 touches, 6 contested possessions, 4 score involvements, and 2 1%ers. And then Lockie Cohen, I thought he moved the ball fairly well for the Blues, finishing with 22 disposals, 7 contested possessions, 6 intercepts, 5 marks, 4 inside 50s, 3 score involvements, 16 pressure acts, 2 1%ers, and 509 metres gained. On the injury front, Orazio Fantasia did come off with a hamstring concern, and Noah Answorth with an Achilles concern. They'll likely be out for a couple of weeks, but we'll get finite details, or we'll get official details, I should say, on those when injury lists are updated. On the MRO front, Zach Bailey was suspended for 1 match for rough conduct against Nick Haynes. I did see it. It's, fairly some standard stuff. I think it's perfectly fine. However, the Adam Chera umpire touch was very, very, very interesting, because, again, there was literally nothing really in it. But he was been sent direct to the tribunal because it's his 4th offence getting in the way of an umpire. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this one is a bit innocuous, but because it's done it so many times and they've been warned, you know what I mean? It's like, you know where the umpires are going every time. I think we banged on about this last week.
But, yeah, we have.
So it's a bit unlucky. If he loses a match, he loses a match. But I should also say it's probably a busy week for them, because they are challenging. Oh, sorry, not for them. Obviously, Brisbane are challenging Zach Bailey's decision.
They are.
I don't know if Carlton would be doing that, but who knows? Yeah, so as I said, it is what it is. But yeah, as I said, for Chera, it's just been a bit of a weird season for him.
Yeah, it really
Had
has.
a good start of the season, seemingly dropped off a bit. But yeah, as I said, Carlton is just a bit all over the place. So who knows? With his luck, he probably gets done for it. So we'll wait and see.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's jump over to our Friday night game up on the Gold Coast, People First Stadium, of course, where the Suns host the Pies with a scoreline of 6 points as the margin. And the scoring was, of course, 10-9, 69 to 8-15, 63.
Yeah, it was a weird game. Starting off, it was a very defensive battle with Collingwood doing well to stop the attack and set shots coming from a strong stoppage dominance by the Gold Coast. The one big problem for Collingwood is they only scored 10 behinds for the half. No goals, making it their lowest half total since 2005 and their only goalless half. Well, not only goalless half. I mean, their first goalless half since 2021. The Gold Coast did allow some marks inside 50, but it was very, very high out with only 8 shots allowed within 40 meters to go. Goal, sorry. So you can see why they were a bit inaccurate. Gold Coast defense did make it tough on them. Obviously, they needed to convert some of it. So, it's just, even though Collingwood on matchups had their moments, the link up between Andrews, Ulan, and Adams to get the ball to Noble and Rioli. Sorry, I was thinking Taylor Adams for some reason, and then I was realized, oh wait, Gold Coast have a person called Adams.
Yes, they do.
I was like, a bit of a throwback. Yeah, getting the ball to Noble and Rioli, who were having a field day back early in that contest.
Yes.
So very strong in that back line early. The second half, though, would turn into this game into a lethargic stomping into a very intriguing contest. As Collingwood started to find the chains that would break through the Gold Coast defence, and they involved the half of halves by the Dacos boys, who are absolutely electric at moving the ball and finding tall targets before Gold Coast could get their spoils going.
Yes.
Nick Dacos was a bit more even in the third and fourth quarters, but Josh Dacos, he had probably one of the best fourth quarters in the for this year today, and it curbed a 40-point margin early in the third to a 2-point lead at the 14th mark of the fourth, thanks to Elliott's second goal. It seemed like a script we've all seen before. Collingwood gonna run over a team that, were really good, but their defense was keeping it in it. Also, the unfortunate of losing Miller early on. But the boys thought, you know what? Even though we don't have one of our star players, we're gonna live. Anderson and Rao absolutely feasted late in that middle.
Agreed.
Linked up well. Also got the ball to Long, who slotted a clutch goal, and it made a statement win for the Gold Coast, who didn't desperately need this win, but it makes the road to finals a hell of a lot easier.
It really does. The fact that this game went from being a potential stomping out of nowhere to being probably one of the best thrillers of like the past maybe 2 months at minimum is nothing short of astounding. The fact that Collingwood are able to switch like gear, from some brilliant coaching from Fly and his assistants, of course, and some impressive displays of their players, such as the Dacos boys, as mentioned. That's crazy, and that's why they're top of the table, because they're able to do that. Again, like Brisbane, they're able to adapt, and it's something that a lot of the other teams, even the teams like the Suns, who again have made this game a statement, because it shows that they are here to play finals. They want this finals position locked down, and they will do anything to make sure that happens. It's all about adaptability with these top 4 teams at this point, top 8 teams even. And I think the Suns are definitely heading into that right position. Again, that when they lost Miller, it kind of did drop their productivity a little bit, but then Anderson and Rao stepped up, as you'd mentioned, made things a whole lot smoother in terms of being able to win this for them. But yeah, it's just adaptability, because you already know your potential for top 8 is there. You already know you're basically in the right position, but now it's about the more macro changes and stuff that you have to do mid game. And
Yeah.
Suns are definitely in the right position to be able to start doing that a lot better than what they were previous.
And the other thing too is that this is probably a very finals-like game.
Agreed.
Where, you're doing well. We've seen it a lot last year with some of the comebacks. But the other team gets going, then you're like, well, we're the young team, is like, we try to attack a bit more, but then Collingwood, obviously with their pressure, get a few more turnovers. Then they, try and hold the ball up a bit. But then they were getting a bit too log jammed and not scoring enough. And I think it's those individual moments of just like Rowell and Anderson, probably more Rowell, obviously, because Anderson's younger, but, just knowing the right times to attack and knowing the moments that's like, yeah, this is where I can stamp my authority on this game the most effectively and make the most of the moments. Because as I said, for Collingwood, this is a game that they, can win because, again, they've got so much belief in their structures that they know that if they're defensively sound, they're pretty much in any game, no matter how deep the hole looks, and it looked terrible early. So yeah, that's what makes this even more impressive by the Suns. As I said,
absolutely.
I know I was very sour on them early, more preseason predictions, but I think I'm glad that I turned I quickly stepped back from that, and I think this win is sort of proving that this isn't just a bit of a soft schedule leading into a nicer thing. No, this is just like the Suns literally taking that step.
Yeah, 100%. It's your turn. That's all I had.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, I think I caught something in my ear. It just made a bit of a noise. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, that's sort of what I mainly meant to say. I will say that yeah, I was talking about the defense, and I was like, what was apparent, I think, is that when the game got tough, they did struggle to turn back half movements into score. Even though like really big players like Noble, Rioli, Jeffrey were doing reasonable jobs off half back. I think that is still an area where, I think a really, really good team would have like squashed the Magpies earlier because again, they were bad. Again, probably only 3 teams that probably would have done it, and that would be an informed Brisbane, Geelong, and maybe Adelaide. So yeah, so as I said, so for Gold Coast, I think the thing that they still need to look out of this game is looking where they can take the ball off the wing, because we said it was good that the step up for Anderson and Rao was good once Miller went down, but sort of the hard thing was when Sam Flanders went out, he was doing an okay job on the wing, making that link up between half forward and the wing and half forward. But when he went into the middle, that sort of thing fell apart from them. So I think this may actually stated the importance, because he's obviously had so many possessions last year. He's playing a very different role this year. So apologies if anyone started with him in his super coach team, but yeah, I do think that the outside is maybe where he lives. And yeah, as I said, if they can just get a tiny bit more from back half transition, because they do still have like decent chains. I'm not blaming Rioli or Noble for anything like that. It's just more the defensive wingers that, as I said, they don't quite have that many targets. So they patch up that and they become a pretty complete team.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Like again, I think it's primarily now their forward line that is really kind of the main sort of issue. Like they have decent forwards. The forwards that can
Yeah,
convert well, can play on the ground. They've got, King and Long. King, is a
yeah.
tall. Long likes to play tall. So they have enough, but is it
Yeah.
the exactly like where they need to be in terms of that forward six?
Well, the thing is, they're getting it done. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
they find goals from other avenues. So that's why I wouldn't like highlight that specifically. But I think I have mentioned before, like it's young. And again, that's what makes movement from the back half so hard because, the chains where it does go forth, they're not exactly hitting up too many leading targets. They do like to work the ball from stoppage. They do decently at the ground level. So, yeah, as I said, if they can just and we've seen like moments where Ethan Reed's been really good. We've seen moments when Jed Walters has had a decent game. Obviously, this game not so much. But yeah, as I said, when now that Ben Long and I was about to say Max King, Ben King,
Yes.
have sort of slowed down a bit. I think it is, still a tiny bit of concern for the Suns, just a bit.
I mean, yeah, it's a little concerning that they might be able to have a little bit of leeway with like one or two of the somewhat easier games that they have in their run home, but it's still going to be a little bit hard to ensure that they do get this final spot that they're after. I think at this point, like
Mm.
obviously the staple win against Collingwood would definitely help in that regard. They definitely need
Yeah.
this, but it's not over yet.
Yeah, and plus, as I said, you worry about that. But there's like, I mean, for this game, for example, the unfortunate first quarter or probably first half of Will Hoskin Elliott. You know what I mean? Like, normally a fairly reliable enough player, but kept on turning the ball over. So you never know which players necessarily are going to lift and which ones aren't.
Hmm.
So it's about having that mix, and I think Gold Coast in that forward line just have enough in that mix. But yeah, come finals, it might be hard to rely on Reed Walter, King Long. But again, they can get a few goals from the midfield. You know what I mean? Like keep it defensive enough. Again, their backline did okay, so yeah,
Well,
they can do some damage.
speaking of midfield, one of the key players in the midfield did actually hit the scoreboard this week, and that is Matt Rao. He was on top of his usual elite game. He actually did hit the scoreboard, as I had just mentioned. Don't know why I'm repeating myself, but anyway, he's kicked 2-1 from 32 disposals, 18 contested possessions, 9 inside 50s, 12 clearances, 6 score involvements, 13 tackles, 32 pressure acts, and 565 meters gained. Brody Euland was solid in defense. You had mentioned him previously, finishing with 19 touches, 15 of them effective, equating to 78.9% efficiency, 5 contested possessions, 7 intercepts, 5 marks, 7 1%ers, 6 spoils, and 100% time on ground. And then John Noble performed well against his old side. You did also mention him. He collected 30 disposals, 21 of them effective, equating to 70% efficiency, 7 intercepts, 8 marks, 4 tackles, 11 pressure acts, 3 1%ers, and 662 meters gained. Over on the Collingwood side of things, Tom Mitchell was a pressure machine this week. He hasn't really received much of a mention. He's been in and out of the side a little bit. But he was really, really good. I thought, finishing with 20 touches, 15 of them effective, equating to 75% efficiency, 11 contested possessions, 4 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 3 score involvements, 11 tackles, and 27 pressure acts. And then Josh Dacos, I think he was definitely the better one out of the two Dacos boys this week. He moved the ball extremely well. He also kicked 2-1 from 32 touches, 27 of them effective, equating to 84.4% efficiency, 14 contested possessions, 6 intercepts, 14 marks, 5 inside 50s, 5 clearances, 10 score involvements, 7 tackles, 70 pressure acts, 11 ground ball gets, and 656 meters gained. And just for a note, I'm pretty sure he scored almost 50% of his disposals in that fourth quarter alone.
Yeah, well, I was about to mention the fantasy points 82 in that last quarter, Supercoach points 126, and I think the player rating was about 18.6, which is the shared most for an individual quarter. I think the other one was maybe Thilthorpe or Bontempelli. I should bring that up, but
That would make a lot of
yeah, as I
sense.
said, it was one of the most highest rating performances on a fair few different metrics.
Mm.
I'll see if I can quickly get it up. Yeah, 18.3 in the fourth quarter is the most, shared with Toby Green in round 5, quarter 3 with 18.3 as well.
Fair enough.
The other ones being 3 and 4, Jeremy Cameron when he kicked bags. One was him against the Eagles. I'm not sure the other one.
Mhm.
And 5th was Marcus Bontempelli and Murphy Reed in that 1 quarter bonanza, kicking
That's
3
right.
goals in round 3.
Fair enough. Just on the injury front, of course, we did mention Took Miller. He went out with a hamstring. Hopefully, he will be all right when it comes to like the last couple of games and or just straight into finals. I don't think it's like super serious, but it is a little concerning considering his age, of course. And then Jeremy Howe went out with a groin concern late in the game. It doesn't seem too bad, but we'll probably miss a couple of weeks. All right, let's jump over to our Saturday game, starting at Marvel Stadium, where the Bulldogs hosted the Crows. Margin of 11 points, with the Adelaide Crows winning 16-13, 109 to the Bulldogs 15-8, 98.
Yeah, and I know we've sort of, talked a bit down on some of the matches, but going through them, there was a lot of good games as well this year, because this round, because this was a fairly fun shootout. I think Adelaide had control for most of the game, and that is thanks to some terrific set shot conversion. 12-3 from them, and they got a lot of excellent conversion that were easy from 450 turnover change, which they got 11-8 in turnover total score, and they scored a healthy 47 from halfback. So an all-round great offensive performance. But the Dogs, they just kept with them because it wasn't really their game. They weren't getting the meterage that they've been used to, but they scored well from stoppage, where they scored 9-4, and they scored 9 straight from 11 set shots, and that's what kept them in the hunt for most of this game. They were, unfortunately, defensively rabble. O'Donnell and Caulfield could only manage a measly 1 defensive one-on-one contest win from 6 attempts. Rory Lobb was really the one that was battling on his own down there. Whilst on the flip side, Adelaide were okay defensively. I think early on, the loss of Butts early did give the Dogs a bit of an opening, especially for Aaron Norton. He kicked a lot of early goals. I think it was 4 in the first half.
Yes.
But after that, it was mainly on ground level where the Dogs get most of their chances. And we also had a really nice captains matchup as well for this game. Haven't always seen it. A lot of different captains in different positions, but this is a classic Dawson v Bontempelli head-to-head. Both players raking in possessions, tackles, and score involvements. But at the end of the day, it was actually the Crows with the more diversive midfield performers. Saligo, Rankin, Curtin, obviously Curtin on the outside as well as Cumming.
Yes.
From their midfield group, linking up to their forward line. While surprisingly, Richards was the only real support for Bont, as Kennedy and Frazier sort of had rare off games. You sort of forgive him because they've been pretty good on year, but against a would-be top 4 side, it sort of added a bit of separation.
Yeah, that's right. The fact that the Crows were able to get away with so much on not just on Dogs' home turf, of course, but like against that midfield that's been known to be really good at shutting down hard runners is crazy, and it really goes to show how improved Adelaide have been, and like we know that they've been really threatening the past couple of years. 2024, a bit of a 50-50 year for them, but we knew how threatening they could be. This year, vastly shows what they've been working towards, and that they're ready. Pretty much the fact that they can contend with all of the top 8 teams and are able to really stamp their mark and perform the way that they have against another threatening team like the Dogs. Solid work.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because obviously last year was centered around their defense, but this year they're sort of not that they've shut away from, because one-on-one defensively they're pretty good, but they do let a bit more score through just so they can aggressively attack off rebound.
They do. They're really good at
I
their
think
rebound
it's
game.
safe to say, it's safe to say it works with them. I don't think that's like that big a problem at all. They have shown that in the few defensive matchups they've been in, they've held up okay. It's not like they've been blown out the water while struggling to score too often, if at all, this year. So, as I said, pretty good wing. And, it's all those, it's one of those things where it's, again, the return to form to some of their players that I, half criticized either last year or early this year. Obviously, one of them being Jordan Dawson. He
Yes.
is by far and away all Australian caliber. I know I was a bit hesitant with the start, but he has been leagues ahead of some of his contemporaries over the last month. So it's been a really good effort for him. Obviously, moving Dan Curtin to the wing. Not a maligned player, obviously, but people were surprised to see him start so slowly last year when he was picked so high. But whatever they did for his development, he's running, he's a big unit, so he can take those marks, but he's still got enough tank. I know he stays majoritively between half forward and wing, but it's so good when they do get those rebounds to have Dan Curtin hitting him up. He can go forward to kick a goal. He can hit targets, and it's really good to see. And as I said, it just means, as I said, some of those pickups that we thought, absolutely going to bolster them, as I said, Cumming had as I said, a good game statistically in terms of damage, but not that many possessions. Peatling had a quiet one. Alex Neil-Bullen had a quiet one, and yet the Crows look fantastic. So it's really good how spread the Crows are.
I was going to make a brief comment about Neil-Bullen because I think whilst, stat-wise, I guess, on the ground kind of wise, like just from watching it, like you can see he does feel a little quiet, but I think he has that sort of impact where he's able to drag a defender away from a contest. And he's able to kind of force open other teams' defenses just by being that threatening of a player, even if he doesn't really do much.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that they are so structured and they are so hard to defend because that just spreads you so far. You know what I mean? It's like, or even someone like a Tex Walker, as I said, is not often forgot about because obviously he's had that, well, I say strong history, apart from one moment, of course, but, he does do a lot just to break up defenses. You can tell the leading patterns from Phil Thorpe, Walker, and Fogarty are by design, and they always open up each other. And then when the ball hits the ground, not too many times this, sorry, he didn't convert too many times this game, but Ben Keys is always lively when the ball eventually does find its way down. So while I did say the Dogs were a bit of a rabble defensively, they were trying. I also think, what was it? I think, what was it? Who's the other one? O'Donnell had a few good moments. Probably more so when he switched to attack. It was a bit mixed against Walker, just giving away a few free kicks. But you know what I mean? It's like, but again, I think when we talk about the Bulldogs, we're definitely talking about a defense that for them is just good enough. We know where the talent lies. We know where the money's being spent. And for the most time it works. It's just, as I said, the scary thing for the Dogs is this just going to be another year where come the finals, when you're versing all these good quality oppositions, is this defense just going to let them down at some point? Because they got smashed by, who was it, Hawthorn in the qualifying?
They did indeed
play Hawthorn.
Yeah, it was Hawks.
Yeah, just elimination final. So, as I said, it's a race to the finals, and you always want to be there. But at the same time, that can sort of let you down. And the fact is, it's not even just defensive. It's also ball use from there. I've talked about it all year, but as I said, O'Donnell and Dale are surprisingly the only two reliable ball users there. Lob obviously great defensively, but by far he's pretty mediocre. Not a huge knock on him, but but yeah, apart from that though, there is no Bulldogs player with under a 20% one-on-one loss rate. And as I said, they only mitigate this fact by the fact that they shield their defense by preventing by preventing the need to defend by controlling the ball. And, as I said, it's weird because obviously I still feel that there's a bit of this where it's a bit better than last year where they were very feast or famine, where they're either literally smashing teams or getting belted themselves. But, as I said, the remnants are still there. I think they've done an okay job to patch it up, but it still feels a tiny bit like last year, even though it looks a bit different.
Yeah, it's obviously, the fact that Lob is down back permanently now has definitely been a factor of that kind of shift in Bulldogs look. It's pretty impressive that he has, and we've talked about this recently, that he has been such a staple now and he has been such a bona fide defender for them. But yeah, patching up those holes come finals when they're only up against the best of the best. How is it going to stack up? And it's a little concerning to say that it probably is the worst defense in the top 8. But even then, is their midfield good enough to not have to let their defenders do so much to try and make it winnable?
Well, unfortunately, the Giants are actually the worst defense in the top 8 because Bulldogs are 9th as it stands now. But
technically true.
Point. If they were in it, they would be in there.
Yeah.
Giants have had a very weird season defensively.
If we kind of collated as a top 9, we'd put the Bulldogs there.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, the Bulldogs would be by skill far and away on the bottom.
Yeah, it's the big concerning factor for them at the moment because obviously we know they've got a really, really really strong and flexible forward line for the most part. Especially with Norton and Darcy being those two key spearheads. Their midfield, when they're on, and they're one of the best. But it's still that defense that's always going to be the concerning factor. And hopefully it holds through come finals. If they make it to finals, of course. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. Yeah,
but on the flip side, they will get players back. Because obviously Liam Jones, I think he had a run in the VFL this week. And Luke Cleary is a bit more of a depth player. Will at least provide an option where if they feel like they need to make a change, they'll have someone to bring in. So, we'll wait and see. But yeah, as I said, they will have to find this out in the weeks before finals.
Yes.
And if they don't, they probably won't make finals anyway. So
all wait and see. But let's just move on to our individuals, starting with Adelaide spearhead Riley Thilthorpe, of course. He slotted 6 goals from 17 disposals, 15 of them effective, equating to 88.2% efficiency, 8 contested possessions, 9 marks with 5 of them inside 50, 10 score involvements and 14 pressure acts. He is really coming for Jeremy Cameron's Coleman. He is hot on his tail. I think Cameron's 8 in front at the moment. But he didn't really have a decent game in terms of goal kicking this week. So there's an entire chance that it could get taken from him.
Yeah, because it's what? Phil Thorpe's about 5th now. I think Georgiades 2nd.
Oh yeah, Georgiades is 2nd. That's
Elliot
right.
3rd.
But still, they're getting close.
Yeah, it's still not open season. I think Hogan still might be up there despite his.
I know Hogan. I know Cadman has caught up because of his recent step up in performance.
We'll talk about that soon. But
so yeah,
makes it more threatening. I'll quickly bring it up.
Everything is up for debate right now.
Yeah, so okay, we'll run through it. Jeremy Cameron 53 goals, Mitch Georgiades 45, Elliot 44, so. Ben King 44, but a game behind, so we'll probably call it a soft 46, 47.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Then we got Hogan 41, Gunston 39, Thilthorpe 39. So shared 6 for Thilthorpe.
Not too bad. Yeah, your boy Mitch Georgiades is definitely the top threatening one at the moment.
If you can kick straight.
Yeah, true.
Leading the behind total.
With the port run home, that might be a little bit harder to do.
Yeah. He's leading shots as well. So you probably could have won a Coleman if he was a bit more, but he takes a lot of tough shots. So.
This is true. Continuing
51% shot accuracy.
That's positive. Better than under 50%.
Definitely.
Um,
Anyway,
Moving on to my other individuals, of course. Mark Keane was a wall in defence for Adelaide, finishing with 12 touches, all of them effective. So, of course, 100% efficiency. 6 contested possessions, 5 intercepts, 6 score involvements, 12. Sorry, that's meant to say 12. 12. What do I normally write there? 12. 12
no.
1%ers. There we go. I remembered.
Yeah.
For some reason, I wrote score involvements twice. It threw me off. I do
Yeah.
that. But yes, 12 1%ers and 9 spoils. Captain Jordan Dawson had another stellar outing and another captain's game, of course. He kicked 2-1 from 27 disposals, 21 of them effective, equating to 77.8% efficiency, 13 contested possessions, 4 marks, 7 inside 50s, 6 clearances, 2 goal assists, 12 score involvements, 8 tackles, 24 pressure acts, 21 metres gained. Marcus Bontempelli, of course, had another phenomenal captain's game. As you had mentioned, they were pretty much against each other and had sensational performances. He collected 37 touches, 27 of them effective, equating to 73% efficiency, 16 contested possessions, 4 intercepts, 8 marks, 10 inside 50s, 8 clearances, 6 goal assists, 11 score involvements, 12 tackles, 20 pressure acts, 11 ground ball gets, and 778 meters gained. And then Nick Caulfield was composed in defense, even though he has had a bit of a 50-50 kind of game. He was probably second best behind Rory Lobb, but I do mention Lobb a lot on the podcast, so I thought I might just mention someone else briefly. He finished with 14 disposals, 12 of them effective, equating to 85.7% efficiency, 7 intercepts, 7 marks, with 3 of them being intercept marks, 4 1%ers, and 4 spoils.
Yeah, it was just a tough assignment for him because obviously he didn't quite have the height to match with Fogarty, but he ran with them all right. I can see why he probably wanted to mention it. It was more just a decent effort in a pretty, as I said, they probably wanted a Liam Jones to make that defense more rounded.
Yeah, ideally you wouldn't want
he
to
tried
Jones
his
to go
best
up in
considering how
but
scattered the Bulldogs backline is.
yeah, that's right. On the injury front, of course, as everyone is well aware, Jordan Butts, with chest. He had a punctured lung, apparently, from a tap from Sam Darcy. Although apparently he actually injured it prior, and then the punch from Sam Darcy in the chest aggravated it. So he was in the hospital for a couple of days. I think he's out now. But hopefully all is well. Fair chance he will definitely miss a couple of weeks at minimum. Maybe, hopefully not rest of the season, because the Crows definitely need him in defense. But fingers crossed. And then Braden Cook went out with concussion, so he will miss next week's game for the Dogs.
The Crows.
Sorry, the Crows. I couldn't remember which side it was on. All right.
Like a bit of a fringe player.
We were just talking about this team, but jumping over to NG Stadium, where the Giants hosted the Cats. 26-point margin for the Giants with 17-9, 111 to the Cats 13-7, 85.
Yeah, and as I said, every year, Blazy, well, not every year, but for the last few years, I know I'm always guilty of this. I don't know who you tipped this week, but the Cats, they look strong, they look good, and GWS just, it might also look good, but below them on the ladder, and we're like, you know what? The Cats should curb this one.
Yeah,
they should get over them.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Giants missing a few defenders.
Once I realised that the Giants beat the Cats in Geelong, the game had already started, so I couldn't make my change.
Yeah, I thought I mentioned that last week. I probably should have.
You probably did, and I just forgot about it. But
yeah, you don't tend to listen to me that much, Blazy.
I listen to you enough.
It's okay. 3 hours is a long time to listen to me.
Just before we keep going with this game, though, you want to know something really funny that I realized earlier? I think it was yesterday. So,
yeah, sure.
Collingwood have only lost 3 games, right?
Yeah.
Which teams have they lost them to? Geelong, GWS, and the Suns. What letter do they all start with? The letter G.
Yeah. I hate to say it, though. That was also a tweet that came out. So
yeah, I know. I think Swampy was the one that covered that. I think it's really funny, though.
Yeah. Anyway. So, yeah. It was very interesting because, it was a very offensively dominant performance to keep the Cats at arm length, no matter how often they would come back. And they did about maybe 3 or 4 times in this game. GWS would just pile on strings of 3 or 4 goals. Talking about string being the deliberate word used in this case, and will make the margin look unattainable, as Gold Coast could only make the most of sparse opportunities despite a massive 60 entries inside 50, as Buckley, Iden, and Himmelberg all had solid matchup wins, while Cadman and Stringer at the other end, who I was alluding to before, had a field day. They were also good in the middle. Green and Callanan dominated the bounce.
Yep.
As GWS had a nice clearance dominance win and 3 centre bounce goals. Geelong had good distributors when they could load their eyes and tee off targets. And their disposal difference wasn't too bad, but only a few players had real impact with ball in hand. And I would say that those players were probably Myers, Stewart, and Atkins, who had the most lethal disposal. Everyone else was probably batting a bit below their average. So in the end, it just meant that Collingwood couldn't keep up because, again, plenty of entries, but it was all being ripped off fairly well. So while it wasn't like a defensively, considering the fact that they've been a lot worse. Defensively, they're actually pretty solid despite giving up 13-7. As I said, it was pretty nice conversion, but as I said, it was the only concern was how often for the GWS that the ball was going inside their 50. The Cats could get a fair bit of run on the outside, but you know what I mean? Whether that's a bit by design, you concede a bit just to make sure it's a dump kick. Maybe that's the way to go against Geelong, but, it just felt like they weren't quite getting their first, even though they did have a fair few players that were threatening in this match.
This is true.
Or at least bubbling on disposals.
Yeah, when I was looking through the stats and stuff earlier, I definitely noticed that their defensive players had more of the ball and had more of the, involvement in the game, to put it kind of simply. But yeah, the Giants managed to hold true. Their midfield stacked up well, forwards stacked up well, defense, even still with missing Sam Taylor, stacked up really well against Geelong somehow. Quelled Jeremy Cameron. Not by much, but he was still effective. Shannon Neal actually got a decent amount of run at it, which was good for him. Get that experience under his belt because he's only 3 seasons in really. So that's good for him. But yeah, credit to the Giants for managing to hold on and really, really take them to town because they've constantly been threatening and just needed to be shut down in a way that only the Giants really could.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you mentioned the back half, and it's like Tom Stewart was the only one that probably could match the back half distribution from the Giants. That Guthrie had an okay game. Blitzhoff was sort of playing that weird role where he wasn't quite a defender, wasn't quite a ruckman. He was just floating, doing a bit of everything.
Yeah, it's like he was trying to do a fill role. Like he was just there for the sake of being there.
Yeah, exactly. But as I said, not much of that actually related to decent transition. So as I said, it's sort of as I said, a bit of a problem. But again, Geelong's normally been a bit better, so we might just put this as, a bit of an off game for them. As I said, they did get plenty of movement in there, but as I said, it just fell apart in that last step. So, as I said, whether that was how it was set up, whether because the Giants were forcing him into the safer options early, which I think there was a tiny bit of, or whether it was just feeling a bit rushed. As I said, it just didn't quite feel as clinical as John could be.
Yeah.
The last one I really want to make up is that, in this part of the season, I think GWS of all teams have got to find depth players to step up. And I'm not mentioning because it's like a thing of this game. I actually thought they did quite well. Because we know that forward line and back line is stacked with talent. But whether the middle of the ground does enough to supply entry and prevent centre bounce dominance against will be the main factor of whether there'll be a threatening team. Sort of like the Bulldogs when we get into things. I think that's like a soft theme. It's like I'm sort of saying why as I said, I might have a bit of concerns for GWS being a finals threat because they are the only top 8 team with a negative inside 50 differential, averaging a loss of 6.5 per game. That is, the opponents get roughly 7 or 6, depending on how optimistic you are, more inside 50s than the Giants do. So, as I said, the bulk of their, a bulk of their players are playing in those like wing positions, a few drifting off inside midfield. Obviously, they gave away a bit of talent in the off season. They have uncovered Darcy Jones, who massive step up in the absence of Daniels. Absolutely fantastic game.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, I think getting in games into Royston and Angwin will help out the depth. I think both of those players had fairly reasonable games because if they don't get key players back, or if an injury-prone player does come back but gets injured a game like Canelio, as I said, it will hurt their chances. As I said, GWS, they have enough, but their depth is still a bit concerning. But as we can see, when it clicks together, they're just so strong offensively, and they can take down in the competition. Like, they've already had wins against Collingwood and Geelong this year. Well, Geelong twice. So, did they beat Adelaide? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I think it was close, but I can't remember if they won.
So, yeah, as I said, as I said,
they're at this point where they have majority of the great pieces that they need. It's just finding that depth in case one of those pieces is injured. Praying that it's not their forward line, because their forward line is really, really good right now, especially with again Cadman finally coming into like the role that he was brought in for. He was former number 1 draft pick for a reason. Granted, that was also because no one wanted to place a bet on Ashcroft. He was always going to Brisbane no matter what. But like he has such insane skill and talent, and now he's at that development point where he's able to start showing it off like wholeheartedly, and it is incredible.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I thought it was a bit silly, some of the early criticism of Cadman being, obviously a key forward pick number 1, because obviously it takes 2 years anyway. I think now you're starting to see why he was picked so highly. But even then, like, he could still have less production this year. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, as I said, it's that next step up that's going to make GWS like really threatening. And you know what I mean? It makes the pick like, what do you call it? Stringer even more lethal. Because we mentioned, like, he's been up and down all year. Like, this is just Stringer shows up when when the astrological signs line up, when he rolls out the right side of the bed, put his lucky underpants on. You never know when exactly he's going to pop up, but if GWS can get enough goals from other sources, and then Stringer just provides that icing on the cake, that's when it all comes together for G-Dubs. And hopefully for them, it might be in the last dance for the season. That's what they brought him in for.
Yeah, exactly right.
Grand final to have that X factor.
Exactly right. He is the package for a reason, Jake Stringer. But on our individuals, I will talk about a milestone man instead. Lachie Whitfield. He had his 250th game this week, and he stood absolutely tall, finishing with 32 disposals, 24 of them effective, equating to 75% efficiency, 5 contested possessions, 5 intercepts, 11 marks, 4 inside 50s, 5 score involvements, 11 pressure acts, and 462 meters gained. Former number 1 draft pick Aaron Cadman, of course, we were just talking about him. He continues to shine, kicking 6-1 from 15 touches, 12 of them effective, equating to 80% efficiency, 8 contested possessions, 8 marks, 5 inside 50s, 8 score involvements, and 505 meters gained. Then youngster Darcy Jones impacted well. What was that, sorry?
I was going to say, technically 2 number 1 draft picks in that list. Lachie Whitfield. Was it 2015?
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It might have been 11 years ago. 10, 11 years ago, something like that.
Would have been 14, yeah.
Because he's been on the list almost since their inauguration. I think it was like 1 or 2 years after.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So yeah,
But
anyway.
yes, Dusty Jones he impacted well, kicking a goal from 15 touches, 7 contested possessions, 3 inside 50s, 3 score involvements, 6 tackles, 18 pressure acts, and 377 meters gained. Over on the Geelong front, we did talk about Tom Atkins. He had major impact, collecting 18 touches, 14 of them effective, equating to 77.8% efficiency. 12 contested possessions, 6 inside 50s, 7 clearances, 3 goal assists, 5 score involvements, 6 tackles, 28 pressure acts, and 3 1%ers. You might have to fix that.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
and then Jack Henry, of course, was great in defense, finishing with 14 disposals, 11 of them effective, equating to 78.6% efficiency, 6 contested possessions, 11 intercept possessions, sorry, 4 marks with 3 of them intercept marks, 6 1%ers, 5 scores, and 385 meters gained. You're much better now, thank you. All right, time to go to the dead rubber game that all it really mattered was the 4 points. Because the game itself was terrible. Both teams are terrible, but it was a game. I was there. I saw it all. It is, of course, Saturday night at the MCG, Richmond v Essendon, 9 point margin, with the Tigers winning with 6-10-46 to 4-13-37.
yeah, a game which saw 4 goalless quarters and a shot map that looked like a dartboard after a happy hour. Maybe like after you've taken a shot map yourself. It was, yeah, it was a dark weekend, especially for Melbourne. Not Melbourne, Victorians. He had to watch a lot of Victorian teams go down. And then this one, which felt like a loss of 2 teams, more than a win for either.
Yes.
It was a skill error riddled contest. Approximately 1/4 of the kicks were ineffective in a low tackle count game, as Richmond did get the jump on the Dons, but a neat 3-goal, no behind quarter for the Bombers, and it looked like it could be a half interesting game by virtue of closeness. But if you can do the math from the score that Blazy said, you can see where the problem's coming. But despite the only other goal coming from the Dons being halfway through the third quarter by Archer May, Richmond halted themselves with a 1-point second quarter and a 3-point third quarter. So Essendon did have the lead until Richmond did double their goal tally in the last quarter,
Correct.
kicking 3, and Essendon came crashing down, undoing the honourable work that has been a bit of the mid-part of the season. Obviously, we mentioned, bye, they were pretty terrible, came out, looked all right, but now, yeah, this is just, I don't want to say like inexcusable, but this is just a morale killer, really.
Yeah, it really was. Even for both teams, like if even though we take the 4 points, the win is a win. Our performance in that second and third was just horrible, pretty much everywhere else except defense. I thought for the most part our defense really held up, as much as it could be, really. The fact that we got Tyler Young back, Jaden Short's back down there now, it definitely was a lot stable. When James Trezise, who was our sub, came on, I believe end of the third quarter, start of the fourth, we still look so much more comfortable and so much more composed. And I think for the most part, this is what our our back six is going to look like, going forward. Obviously, once Gibkiss is healed, not injured, praying,
Yeah.
he'll slot in there as well, and then that'll free up players like McIntosh to play a little bit more forward again. Like Vlosten could push up a little bit more if he wanted to. That'll just open up our defense a lot more. And that's what I'm looking forward to. But I think this was a good showing of at least our defense, because there wasn't much more else to really enjoy.
Yeah, and I honestly find it funny. I was looking through the coaches' votes, and they could agree at Tim Taranto for the best player on the ground.
I didn't mention him in my
But
individuals, but he was phenomenal. Like, he was the standing point.
Yeah. Well, he's had a lot of individual mentions from you, so I appreciate you changing it up. But everyone else, they had 8 different players representing the different votes. So the coaches couldn't even decide who roughly was. There was no overlap in who they thought the next bunch of players down the rank was. So I think that sort of suggested that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, it's make what you will for anyone else in this contest, because yeah, you have to make your own optimism after watching this game.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, take the 4 points. Might be able to string a second win with West Coast coming up this week. We'll talk about that a bit later. But for the most part, pretty comfortable with what we had otherwise. I will just jump straight into the individuals because there isn't really much more to say on this. Like even on the Essendon part, like it was just not great at all. So Tyler Young, upon return from an ACL injury, he was one of our ACL boys. I'm so glad he's back. People forget that on his debut year, which was 2022, I think. Oh no, 2023. Sorry, 2023 was his debut year. He was one of the best one-on-one defenders in the comp. Like he was that good so early, and that ACL just kind of shut him down completely. Same with Gibcus. It sucked. But I'm glad he's back because he looks so good and he gels so well with our defense. He finished with 18 disposals, 17 of them effective, equating to 94.4% efficiency, 5 contested possessions, 8 intercepts, 8 marks, with 4 of them being intercept marks, 9 pressure acts, 6 1%ers, 4 spoils, and 331 meters gained. Jaden Short, upon return from injury as well, looks very settled back on half-back, I should say. Kicking a goal from 25 touches. It was one of his long bombs too, the goal. Always good to see. 25 touches, 21 of them effective, equating to 84% efficiency. 10 marks, 5 inside 50s, 4 score enrollments, 497 meters gained. Then Rising Star nominee Luke Traynor has been absolutely reliable around the ground. He's played a huge string of matches recently. He's barely been out of the side. He's literally the only one out of our 2024 recruits who has played the most games so far, because most of them have either been out with injury or just not up to standard just yet. So he finished with 16 disposals, 4 contested possessions, 5 marks, 2 behinds, 6 score involvements, 5 tackles, 19 pressure acts, 3 1%ers, 3 spoils, and 306 meters gained. Also, shout out to debutant Taj Hodden, who honestly he already looks like he's played 50 games. He was that composed on ground. He was very solid. He kicked his debut goal as well from 10 disposals, 6 contested possessions, 3 intercepts, 3 inside 50s, 3 score involvements, 3 tackles, and 13 pressure acts. I think he was kind of playing a bit of a run with role. I can't remember with who, but I thought he did a very solid job otherwise. Over on the Bombers side, as much as there wasn't really all that much to highlight, there were a couple of things. Sam Durham, of course, was very elite around the ground, kicking a goal from 22 touches, 13 contested possessions, 8 inside 50, 7 clearances, 21 pressure acts, 9 ground ball gets, 516 meters gained. And Will Setterfield, despite going out very late in the game with a foot issue, provided solid pressure otherwise, finishing with 18 disposals, 7 contested possessions, 3 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 3 score involvements, 7 tackles, 23 pressure acts. I know Merritt had an absolute captain's game as he normally does, but I didn't want to mention him because we talk about him a lot, so that's just a brief little mention for him there. And then shout out to Essendon debutant Oscar Smart as well, who finished with 6 disposals, 4 contested possessions, 3 inside 50s, 3 tackles, with all of them being inside 50, and 17 pressure acts. On the injury front, as most people are aware, Nick Martin did do an ACL. It's extremely rough for them because he's been one of their best all season long. So hopefully he gets a fairly quick recovery from that and gets returned to full health very soon. A likely chance that it will probably be just before the bye rounds in 2026. He would likely be on track to come back, but more interesting things have happened. He could come back a little sooner. Hopefully he doesn't come back later. But hopefully all will be well. Will Setterfield, as I mentioned, did do a little foot injury, but that was very, very late in the game. So not too much to mention. I think he should be okay. And then on the MRO front, Lachlan Blackiston was fined $2,000 for rough conduct on Tim Taranto.
Yeah, as I said, there's not much to say about that game. Did I ever show you the shot chart for that game?
No, you
Did I
didn't.
post it on the Discord? Alright, I'm just gonna send it to you.
No, yeah, I don't think you did.
It's awful. Yeah. So as I said, I've never seen a shot chart so sparse as that game. Nothing directly in front of goal except for a few ground shots for Richmond. And yeah. Funny thing is though, apparently Richmond scored above their X score. So they actually converted better than expected to, even though they kicked, what was it, like 8-10 or whatever it was.
6-10.
6-10, I should say.
I mean, hey,
So,
I'll take a positive out of a negative.
yeah, exactly. So, as I said, it's just like the Bombers were kicking themselves away, and Richmond's still struggling to find that forward line cohesion, considering that they haven't had any for the last year and a bit.
Pretty much.
What can you do?
Shall we jump over to our last Saturday night game?
Yes, and this is a much more fun to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. So we're over at Optus out in the west, where Fremantle host the Hawks, a 13-point margin, where Freo won 12-5, 77 to the Hawks 9-10, 64.
Yeah, and this was a much more entertaining contest. The back and forth high pressure play would have fans of both on the... Sorry, should have both fan bases on the edge of their seats, as they needed to convert most of their chances to ensure the important victory, as this game was, again, I know it's going to the finals and it's cliche to say it, but it was an 8-point game. Fremantle, they had the dominance early, but the forward connection just seemed a bit off, as the Fremantle mids were trying to curb the influence of a dominant Meek early. He was seeking revenge against his former side. Did drop off a tiny bit, but still absolutely fantastic first half. After a rival by Hawthorn, due to some great general play shots in this sort of wet game, we had a clear battle on our hands. It was how well can Freo move the ball, turn good back half movement into solid entries, versus how well could Hawthorn bring the ball to ground for players like Ginnivan and Watson to feast off. As we mentioned, their ground level game sort of dropped off in the forward line for a few weeks, but it was pretty solid in this contest. It was very feel out. Both teams had parts of their games going and parts of the games that they wish might be a little bit better. But again, Fremantle just proved no matter what the state of their game is, their tolls can come in late and provide those clutch goals. Darcy and Tracy this game had very, very respectable last quarters. Tracy looked a total flip from his fairly quiet first half, and were absolutely massive against an otherwise set Hawthorn defense, who could really only shrug their shoulders, as unlike the game before it, Freo just hit tough shot after tough shot, 8-1 from 11 set shots, and most of them fairly difficult. Hawthorn did push them out. I wouldn't put any of this toll dominance against players like Barras or even Sicily had a pretty good game, and the other one, Battle.
Yes, it was Battle.
It was Battle playing. I don't think he is.
I think he suspended. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure they were all playing. Oh yeah, he is injured. That's right. It might have been. Yeah. Who would it have been down there then?
I was also saying Sicily and Barras.
Yeah, but like I'm just thinking of like that. Oh, CJ. CJ was down there. CJ would have been on the third tall.
Yeah, no. Battle was playing. He was playing on Amiss.
Oh, okay.
That's probably why I didn't see him as much. Amiss kicked a couple of goals, but was a bit not as sided. So, yeah. So, the funny thing I find about this game, in terms of turnovers, clangers, and error kicks, because I mentioned that 1 in 4, because it's one of those things where fan footy has started putting that down. And I looked at the Essendon game, I was like, oh, well, that's surely got to be like one of the higher ones. But if you believe it or not, this game actually rivaled the Richmond Essendon games in terms of, as I say, clangers, error kicks, turnovers. But the difference with this is it was just the pressure being applied was absolutely immense, as teams were utilizing the outside, not purely because they wanted to. This is what I mentioned before. But because of the wet conditions and high pressure meant that the safe play was just the best option most of the time. So for a control team like Freo, this should have been a pretty big disadvantage. But their outside game forward of the ball was pretty good. Whereas Hawthorn, I mentioned that their ground level deep forward was really good. But actually between the wing and half forward, they actually were pretty off. Dylan Moore's having a pretty middling year. He couldn't really get much going. Cam McKenzie, I know he goes inside a fair bit, but he couldn't find much connection as that player that can sort of do that.
Mhm.
I thought McGuinness, when he came on, played really well. And then the other one would have been D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
who sort of, just had an okay game. Sort of ran win O'Driscoll. There wasn't really that much of a win. Oh, sorry, no, he was running with Johnson. I think O'Driscoll was on the other wing with whoever I mentioned before. Morrison.
That's right.
So,
Yes. I was blanking so
So,
hard on
you
the
know
name.
what I
'Cause
mean.
they're fringe player, but also kind of not a fringe player.
well, he's had a pretty good year, Harry Morrison.
Yeah, he's been
Again,
he's had some pretty solid performances.
sort of had to because, yeah, as I said, unfortunately, a player like, as I said, Dylan Moore dropped off. You know what I mean? So they've had to find other. But yeah, so but yeah, so what I wanted to say is, like, even though there was a lot, that Hawthorn could run their game off, it was just, solid pressure, staying strong for Fremantle, and it really kept them good. So even though, as I said, when they got the ball in deep, they were scoring very well. It was very disciplined and it was very solid for Fremantle to force most entries to just be a scrappy kick. You know, so, as I said, it was honestly a very mature performance by one of the youngest teams in the competition. Hawthorn definitely had the should have had more age, more experience to come off with a win here. But Freo just got it done. I was very impressed. Definitely felt like a bit of a flip from last year. And you know what I mean? It was, as I said, it was just so good to see different performers. Matthew Johnson, I'll give a brief shout out because he's playing so much better than what he was looking earlier in. It just looked like he was filling in the numbers. Sam Swiskowski, him coming back, providing a lot of link up was really good. And Corey Wagner, he had a pretty abysmal first half, but kept on building and building. And Michael Frederick, he's had a better year. He provided a bit of spark in a few opportune moments. So, it was a very spread performance. Was very good. And I know, as I said, probably would have liked a few more scoring shots. It was very rare to win with just 17 scoring shots versus... Oh, wait, no, 17 versus 19. There wasn't that much difference, but I don't know why. 12-5 looks so much skinnier than 9-10.
Yeah, I know. It's
Not until you add the two numbers. I don't know. I've as a Port supporter, I've had some fairly lenient math I've been doing in the last month or so. So
oh yeah, I can relate to that.
I try not to think about it too much. I just hope the numbers add up to my favor come the end of the day. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about the standard. It was a pretty good contest. Do you want to go to the individuals?
I do, but I do just want to say that, like, it's really good to see Freo 50-50 on whether, like, last week's loss was an anomaly for them or if it's just one of those games that they really had to kind of lose. But the fact that they, like, just immediately bounced back and against the top 8 threat is huge. It shows again that they want this fight, they want to contend, they want to play finals, like all of the other teams in the top 9, obviously. But they will continue to again adapt and make very minute changes that have a major impact, and they've just been able to do that week in, week out, and it's been really good to see for them that they've actually been able to string together really, really solid performances, because it's not really something we've seen too much of them in the past couple of years, just in general.
Yeah, and I think, the last week's interesting because, we mentioned last week that, Freo were alright, but they didn't really have that many consistent performances. They did get bailed up by their tolls. That really just kept them close in an otherwise game where they got fairly comprehensively beaten in the head-to-head matchups. But as you mentioned, maybe that did provide the spark for them. And obviously, the galvanization of the players behind JL after getting targeted by the mean David King.
Yes.
Never has a good word to say about Freo.
Not to mention, the heart of Sonny Walters doing his official retirement lap as well.
Dude, that was...
Got that too.
Honestly, I don't get too emotional in the send-offs and all that sort of thing. But maybe if it's a poor player. But yeah, Sun, that was a big one because, as you could tell, everyone was just like coming around him, loving him. And he was, you know what I mean? It was like, he still had a bit of heart in him. And that's always the toughest time. It's like, you could tell, like, if he could, he would put on his laces and like run out there one more time. But he also knew that the timing's right. So yeah, so it was good to see them get behind it. But yeah, no, what I was meaning is, like, as I said, like, it was a much more spread performance this week. And I think if JL said, look, guys, you know what I mean? It's like, we're not getting the most out of our forward line, but look how close we're getting. And if we can just get like a bit more out of it, we're going to be a very hard team to beat. And I think that was, whether that was necessarily said, whether it was like the other, I definitely felt like they were a bit more than last week.
Yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, I will jump over to the individuals now, starting with Sam Switkowski, of course. He became the surprising lead goal scorer for Freo, and I believe he kicked the most goals in the match itself, with 3, getting them from 16 disposals, 15 of them effective, equating to 93.8% efficiency, 6 contested possessions, 4 inside 50s, 8 score involvements, 19 pressure acts. Andy Brayshaw was a pressure machine in that midfield, finishing with 29 touches, 20 of them effective, equating to 69% efficiency. That's very nice. He also got 10 contested possessions, 4 marks, 3 inside 50s, 6 clearances, 4 score involvements, 14 tackles, 28 pressure acts. Jordan Clark was brilliant with movement. He collected 31 disposals, 26 of them effective, equating to 83.9% efficiency. 6 intercepts, 7 marks, with 4 of them being intercept marks, 6 inside 50s, 4 score involvements, 11 pressure acts, 591 metres gained. Over on the Hawthorn side of things, Jack Ginnivan has stepped up at ground level, kicking 1-1 from 27 touches, 11 contested possessions, 4 marks, 4 inside 50s, 6 score involvements, 10 pressure acts, 11 ground ball gets. And then Kel Shadir, upon return from injury, they did rush him earlier in the season, but I think he's officially fully back now. He looked very, very good, kicking 3 goals. Okay, never mind, equal tally, I forgot. From 9 disposals, 4 contested possessions, 3 marks, 5 score involvements, 11 pressure acts, and 3 1%ers.
Yeah, it was an interesting battle, that, because Cal Shadir up against the old ghost face, Oscar McDonald. I don't think Oscar did that badly. One of the goals was sort of his fault. The other 2 were just really nice work by Cal Shadir, but definitely 2 players that, come the off-season, you sort of hope get a bit of soup in them. You know what I mean? They're very, not that skinny, but definitely more of the anemic-looking players.
Yeah, you want to hope that over the off season they put in some more muscle. It's the hard part with tall players, especially when they're young. It's so hard to build muscle.
Oh, honestly, they might have more muscle than they look, but you know what I mean? It's like, It's like Dane Swan when he was running around, where he looked like he was very out of shape.
Oh, yeah.
He could just run, so I don't know whether it's just the looks or whatever, but it was just, I found it funny, them going again, up against each other, but I was actually glad to see Oscar play, and I know obviously they would prefer, what's his name, Pierce, back in the side.
Yes.
But yeah, as I said, he hasn't really done enough to be warranted dropping. It's just that got some good players down there. So anytime he makes this opportunity, I've always appreciated it. So yeah, but as I said, Kasha just had a really good game.
Absolutely.
Which is good because Chol was pretty much missing. So
yeah that'll happen with Chol.
Converted well.
Absolutely, he did. Let's jump over to our Sunday games now. Starting off at the MCG with Melbourne and North Melbourne clashing. 36-point margin, with the Demons winning with 18-11, 119 to 12-11, 83.
Yeah, it was mentioned, it may have been a dead rubber, but Melbourne at least wanted to use this chance to redeem themselves after a fairly embarrassing loss to them, the Kangaroos, I should say, earlier in the year. And they diced through the Roos with surprisingly solid forward work in the last quarter to secure the win. It was a hard-fought stoppage game, probably the most entertaining bit of this contest, with both teams being even on clearances and scoring just over 50 points each from it, with North getting a very impressive 5-0 centre bounce goals. It was just Melbourne's ability to create forward half intercepts off North Melbourne's rebound. and get some very solid conversion off of that. That put the game out of reach for North. It was a bit of a shame because overall back half movement was actually a bit better by North. Daniel and McKercher got involved in some pretty decent transition. But essentially, I think a lot more of that was offensively versus defensively. Like once the ball actually got a bit more full, they looked good. But at the cost of that, they were giving up the ball quite a bit. As you know, Melbourne used the lowish pressure game to play with a bit more class. They hit up a few more targets, especially compared to what we've seen of them this year. It was, honestly, it was actually from the bits I watched, which was like a bit of the third quarter up to the fourth. It was actually a all right contest. North again will probably be a bit displeased that they didn't get closer, as they only really have Richmond left, which we would call a line ball game, which they could get a win for the rest of the season. But as for Melbourne, yeah, they're just saying they can. But I think the best thing about it is they've actually been getting a few big scores come the back half of the season. I know not against particularly good opposition, but I think the more that they can try and get some synergy up forward, work out the lineups that they'll be running with next year, the better it'll be. And I know obviously Melksham's not a player that they're going to build around long term, but it is nice to see that he's having a bit of an impact after having a fairly quiet start to the year.
Well,
same with Fritsch.
The issue with Melksham is that he's been so injured the past couple of years that it's been really hard for him to find decent form. And now he's suddenly hit a brilliant patch of form where he's kicked like 16 goals in the past 3 games. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I said he's like, he's not sort of the player you think of, but he's fairly reliable when he's going. As he said, it's just, a bit of injury. I can't actually remember if he played much of the earlier bit of the year. That bit was a bit of a blur.
Yeah, it was a bit of a blur, you're not wrong.
Paying attention for Melbourne, but, as I said, there's bits and pieces that have actually patched up a fair bit more, which is good to see. As I said, the middle problems, they were woeful earlier in the year, but that sort of helped.
Mm-hmm.
But as for North, as I said, they were good defensively for a bit, but they've just dropped off a bit. And I think from here on in, I think it's just individual players because, again, the system's just not quite right there. It's not going to fix itself this year, or even if it does get a bit, it's going to be hard to really get too much momentum from, what the rest of the year has in store. So, as I said,
I just looked at the comment that you added. And I'll mention it, but it is really funny.
That was mainly for you. I was wondering if you're going to read that or not.
Well, considering the MRO reports just came through, it's going to get mentioned.
All right. Well, yeah, there's not much I have to say. So do you want to go through the individuals?
I do. I will start with Jake Melksham, because he has returned to a prominent forward role. Granted, he is 34, or about to be 34, so definitely not one they're going to build around long term. But whilst he has this burst of good form, definitely take advantage of it, and maybe they'll give him one more year, and it might be just like that little bit extra of what they need in terms of veteran presence up forward. But he kicked 5-1 this week from 10 disposals, 7 contest possessions, 5 marks, with 4 of them being inside 50, 7 score involvements, 10 pressure acts, 2 1%ers. Veteran Jack Viney continues to provide monstrous pressure through that midfield, finishing with 18 touches, 13 contest possessions, 5 inside 50, 6 clearances, 5 score involvements, 9 tackles, 31 pressure acts, 4 1%ers. And then Tom McDonald was influential in defence, collecting 17 disposals, 16 of them effective, equating to 94.1% efficiency, 6 contest possessions, 12 intercepts, 11 marks, with 6 of them being intercept marks, 2 score involvements, 8 1%, and 8 spoils. And because I just mentioned it, Gorn did embarrass Tristan Sherry. Fake All-Australian ruckman, apparently. Also classified as a bully. You're probably not wrong in that regard, but we'll touch on why in a moment. For North Melbourne, though, father-son recruit Cooper Harvey mirrored shades of his father this week, kicking 4-2 from 13 touches. He's been playing off of halfback, but it seems like they really wanted to try him out in the forward line to great effect, apparently. 13 touches, 4 contest possessions, 7 marks with 4 of them inside 50, and 8 score involvements. And then Will Phillips provided a lot, finishing with 20 touches, 14 effective, equating to 70% efficiency, 7 contested possessions, 5 inside 50s, 8 clearances, a behind, 8 score involvements, 4 tackles, and 13 pressure acts. On the injury front, Tom Sparrow, concussed. We're about to say why. I will start with it since it may as well just lead straight in. Tristan Sherry was banned for 3 matches for striking Tom Sparrow in the head. Some say it's accidental. It was very much careless. Very, very much careless. But because it was really, really, really hard hit, absolutely, he was gone straight away. And yeah, they are going to miss him in the middle.
Yeah, as we mentioned last week, is the clearance winner. I think, what was it? Centre bounces? No, stoppages. Stoppage clearance winner for North. So yeah, it's a pretty big loss. And although I was a bit tongue in cheek with the comment before, it does beg the question he might take the what do you call it? The All Australian Ruckman Honours, because I did declare that Cherry had officially overtaken Gawn probably a few weeks back. I just giving Gawn a bit of leniency. Gawn has a really good game this week, and there's a player we're going to be talking about next match who's been having a fantastic back half of the year. So
absolutely,
yeah, a bit interesting there. But in terms of it itself, very predictable, the outcome, but pretty unlucky, because as I said, he just stuck his arm out going for a tackle, lowered bodies. It did hit him high, but yeah, as I said, anyone could tell that was pretty incidental. Is one where, like, if it was gut feel, what do you call it? You'll give it 1 match.
Yeah.
But for better or for worse, we don't adjudicate off gut feel. We go with this weird system, which, may have a bit more clarity-ish, but does lead to stuff like this where the outcome does dictate a majority of the suspension.
Yes, unfortunately it does. On the other parts of the MRO, there were a couple more fines. Will Phillips was fined $1,000 for contact with an umpire. It's still going. Finn O'Sullivan and Jai Simpkin were fined $1,000 each for engaging in a melee, and Colton Tholstrup, I love his name. It's so fun. It's so interesting to pronounce. Was fined $1,875 for engaging in a melee. Also, I assume with O'Sullivan and Simpkin, that would make the most sense to me. Yeah,
it'd be interesting if O'Sullivan and Simpkin were fined for engaging in a melee against each other. That would be the old Santana O'Halpin versus who was it? Who was the big bloke? Casbolt?
Might have been Casbolt. Sounds like a Casbolt thing, to be honest.
Yeah. Could be.
But yeah, that would be funny. Considering Simpkin is the captain, that would be pretty funny.
Probably wouldn't get a game next week.
Yeah, there isn't really much more to say on that matter. Like, they're really going to miss Sherry. Their defense, has already dropped in performance. Melbourne have stepped up on the other side of things. Granted, they're not making finals, but they're just trying to have a good end to the season, which is still good. It would be good for them to come out of the season on a high at the very least. But may as well just jump over to our next game, because again, there are a couple of people in this game that we really want to talk about because it relates. So we're jumping over to Marvel Stadium, of course, where St Kilda hosted the Swans. It was a 5-point margin, with the Swans winning with 14-8-92 to 13-9-87. And I don't think anyone really expected this game to be as close as it was, but St Kilda really, really took the fight to them, and I think they jumped them pretty good early on.
Maybe not quite close as it was, because St Kilda can pull this sort of stuff out.
Oh yeah, no, they can. But when you look at St Kilda's past couple of weeks...
I was going to say, to actually be an entertaining contest, I think that was the surprise. Because you would expect one of the sides to crap the bed. Or like St Kilda maybe to make it a Dow contest if it was like both teams close. But
true.
Yeah, it's just, it was a reasonably entertaining game. A bit free-flowing. A few errors occasionally, but most of the time it was pretty good. And yeah, as I said, Swans ended up getting the victory. They, along with Port, will be praying to the god of footy mathematics as they hope to keep their finals alive. And they both sent off those pesky lower-end teams who were trying their hardest. And this was a very pendulum-style game. Both the Swans and Saints getting the game on their terms. And great goal kicking, especially from set shot, helped cause this. Despite some weirdly enough, some very, very low player ratings for players in the defensive side of the ground. Score from back half was quite healthy, as it wasn't a very clearance-heavy game. Although the fact that 29% of stoppages for Sydney ended up in a scoring chain 8-2 means that A, they probably wanted more stoppages than what actually happened, and it was probably a good thing that Saints didn't make this a dour contest. And B, it showed the form of potential AA Ruckman, not a fake AA Ruckman, Brodie Grundy at the moment, as all 5 of his scoring involvements came from his first touch. Rowbottom also enjoyed the feast in the middle. As surprisingly enough, Heaney and Warner had a rare lack of impact offensively. They were involved in other aspects of the game, but
Yes, they were.
didn't have many score involvements. Not like usual. So the Saints, they just couldn't convert enough of their time with deep inside 50 to score. Their tackling pressure was great. They had pretty solid marks inside 50 and did well in the ground ball wins. But I think sort of what kept them in it was a well-kept Higgins. Meant that they didn't always get a good shot from their reasonably better supply during the match. Their midfield did the job. Wilkie was solid down back. But at the end of the day, the Saints just needed to just generate the scoring shots. Still, some fantastic individual efforts and the tolls for the Saints converting meant this was a great contest to watch and proved that the Saints are still going to be a pest side when it comes to the rather pointless end of the season for them. But as for the Swans, it was sort of interest because, it's a bit, you might let yourself down. There was a few defensive lapses that they wouldn't like, but man, that outside game, it is starting to rev up. Obviously, being Errol Goulden coming back has really helped that. But
Yes.
Will Hayward, he's gone on a bit of a tear. Matt Roberts has sort of returned up to form. We mentioned Jake Lloyd last week.
Yes.
And James Jordan just proves he can be very versatile, drifting from defensive positions to attacking positions. He had the run with role with, what was it, Wangani Miller in the first half before they let him off the chain, but did a fairly reasonable job, lowered some of his impact, and just made it that bit harder for the Saints to get that run off halfback. What didn't quite come as easy as it did for the Swans.
Yeah, it's really surprising that St Kilda were able to very effectively shut down Sydney's movement across their halfback and onto their wings, because obviously we know they love transitioning into Goulden, who has an amazing amount of impact as he does every week since he's been back. Saints did a really good job in being able to shut that down. They were also really solid with just pressure in general in that midfield. They were tackling machines as much as they could. It was like this was the kind of game that we expected from the Saints kind of all season long, where it would just be pressure, pressure, pressure. Even if it didn't amount to proper turnover or proper score, they would just constantly be tackling, constantly having someone on ball, regardless. That's sort of this is basically what we should have seen from them way back in the first 6 rounds, and we didn't really get that. But now that I think that they've finally gotten most of their injuries back, they finally found the players that they pulled out of the last 2 drafts and even the mid seasons that I think they want to keep. Obviously Max Hall, Hugh Boxall, Alex Toru, they're all already fitting in so perfectly with this team. Obviously Wangani Miller has been immense all season long. Cal Wilkie stepped up massively. Windhager has been really good. Caminiti had a pretty solid game as well. There's a ton of players in this team that are really starting to shine. And even though they won't play finals again this year, hopefully that they can carry a little bit more momentum, like a couple of these other teams, like Melbourne, for example. Just let that build up into something that they can really, really feel happy with and take on to the 2026 preseason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like one of those things where I actually think I've gotten mixed up. It was actually the Saints who had the better run from halfback. They had a bit better movement. They actually shut down a bit of Sydney, Sydney, as he said. I think I read that upside down, but
No, I think you read that correctly.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, but as I said, it's just like when the ball actually got forward, Sydney were able to make up a lot of that contest from the stoppage work. But as I said, Saints just struggled a bit when that ball actually went in there. They were good at getting mentioned.
Yeah.
I just couldn't find it on ground level. But as I said, honestly, a bit of a rare bad game by Jack Higgins. He shrugged his shoulders at. They were still getting the ball in other areas. And, as I said, as much as Higgins has sort of dropped off, the fact that they're getting very decent production out of Max Hall, as I said, they'll be very happy about that.
Yeah, it's pretty good to see that they're able to really utilize that mid-season recruit, because sometimes you pick up a mid-season recruit, they aren't always what you may would have hoped to get, but Max Hall has definitely been a huge improvement for their forward line. But however, I am not going to talk about this in Kilda forward line. I'm going to talk about Brody Grundy, because again, potential All-Australian ruckman. If he's not equal to at least with Gorn right now, I think he's definitely above, maybe only slightly. Just maybe recency bias, because he has had a really solid 8 weeks. Pretty much post by, as he's been phenomenal. But who knows? I think this is a make or break thing for him. Like, he could genuinely just carry Sydney to another finals run if they get lucky with their run home, and other teams obviously not succeeding as much. If not, huge amount of momentum going into 2026. It's going to be great for them. But he was so dominant against Rowan Marshall. He got 46 hitouts, 13 of them to advantage, and 20 disposals, 14 of them effective, equating to 70% efficiency, 70 contested possessions, 7 clearances, 5 score involvements, 6 tackles, 2 1%ers. Chad Warner was solid with ball movement. Again, you said he wasn't really that effective offensively. He was really solid defensively this week instead. He finished with 20 touches, 14 of them effective, equating to 70% efficiency, 11 test possessions, 6 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 3 score involvements, 4 tackles, 22 pressure acts, 497 meters gained. Then James Rowbottom, as we have also mentioned previously, was very impressive around the ground this week, kicking 1-1 from 15 disposals, 11 contested possessions, 4 intercepts, 4 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 6 score involvements, 15 tackles, 31 pressure acts, 335 meters gained. Over on the Saints side, Anthony Caminiti defended well, collecting 9 touches, 4 intercepts, 13 1%ers, and 12 spoils. He was trying to deflect everything the Swans threw at them.
I wonder what his 1%er was that wasn't a spoil though.
I don't know. Might have been a mark. Could have been
probably.
Could have been a contested mark or a smother or something like that.
Nah, contested mark aren't a 1%er.
Actually, yeah, you're right.
I think it's smother, spoils, and what's the other one? There's another one I can't remember. I think tap onto advantages. I think that counts for 1%.
Yes, I think that does true. But yeah, him and Wilkie defended that. Pretty much defended what Sydney threw at them very, very well. Mason Wood, just for a brief mention, I do mention it in a different dot point, but it was his 150th this week. He distributed well, finishing with 24 disposals, 11 contested possessions, 6 marks, 6 inside 50s, 5 clearances, 4 score involvements, 4 tackles, 12 pressure acts, 3 1%ers, 3 spoils, 543 meters gained. And then shout out to debutant 2021 mid-season recruit Max Heath. Took him a couple of years to come through, but he's finally getting a chance. He finished with 10 hitouts, with 3 of them to advantage, and a goal from 8 disposals, 7 contested possessions, 3 clearances, 6 score involvements, 6 tackles, 13 pressure acts, and 3 1%ers. And also another minor shout out to Rowan Marshall for his also 150th game. I also want to briefly go back to the Richmond game and shout out Nick Floston for his 250th. I feel kind of bad for not mentioning it, but it was his 250th game. Love him, and very glad that he is staying put. All right, jumping over to the injury front, Dan Butler came off with a left elbow injury. I think it's only minor, so he might only miss a week. Again, he's been a little injury prone recently, but hopefully he's all right. And then Tom McCartan suffered another concussion. It's not looking good for him, because he was in a decent run of form too, so it's very unfortunate. So he will miss this week's game. And on the MRO front, James Jordan was fined twice. One, for contact with an umpire, was fined $1,875. Then him and Marcus Windhager were fined $1,000 each for engaging in a melee.
Yeah, and frankly, what I remember about Max Heath, because he said 2021, which I think was the first mid-season. I'm pretty sure it came in after COVID.
No, it was not. It was pre-COVID. 2019, because of
Huh.
I'm I
Oh
don't
yeah, because Richmond got a bunch of injuries, didn't they, or something?
oh well Sean Grigg retired and they gave us
Yeah.
um I'm blanking on his name so hard right now. Everyone knows who he is. I'm blanking. This is
Dimmer.
disappointing. No. The player that we recruited debuted 2019 grand final. I'm blanking so hard at the name. Oh,
Oh,
Pickett.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
please,
Okay, that's right. He
Richmond
was
fans,
missing.
please don't hate me that I forgot.
That's all
Marlon
right.
Pickett. Yes.
I just remember the Saints getting a tiny bit of heat for picking a Project Ruckman from the mid-season draft, but as I said, glad that they stuck with him. Obviously, whoever the VFL team that got pinched off might not have been too happy, but yeah, so good to see him finally get the debut.
Yeah,
That's all
absolutely.
I really had to say.
All right, let's jump over to our last game of the round, where my favorite sledge of the year so far also occurred. We'll mention that a little bit later. But it's Port Adelaide and the West Coast Eagles at the Adelaide Oval. 26-point margin with Port winning 12-15-87 to 9-7-61.
Yeah, although it looked like a fairly comfortable margin, it was very uncomfortable early for Port fans at the Adelaide Oval because an atrocious first quarter, marred by ball use that was rivaling the Richmond Essendon game, and an inability to stop the Eagles from taking uncontested marks at will. And we thought we might be in for an almighty upset as Eagles try and hunt on their barren land. Not getting too many wins at the Adelaide Oval. Injuries got exposed. Hopefully, no injuries exploded for Port Adelaide. As Flynn dominated early and a proppy Aaliyah got caught out a few times against a solidly contesting and late in Jack Williams. Not the BJ Williams that I bagged in to have a absolute treat, unfortunately. Despite the best efforts of a lively Harley Reid and a very trying Clay Hall, Port just worked their way into the game from the first quarter after their 6-goal opening concession to the Eagles due to their biggest weaknesses, as they made the clearance game all about them. It was 53-26 in the clearances, the worst differentials for the Eagles this year, and their third clearance differential that was a -20 or over. And for Port Adelaide, this led to a healthy 9-7 scores from stoppages, and it was only a dreadfully inaccurate third term that kept the Eagles in front at the last change. With the Eagles doing fairly well against the Port Tolls, McGovern can probably sleep better knowing that Gibney and Edwards may pass the line, but just the lack of pressure on the clearances. Winners hurt a lot as Butters and Horne-Francis were basically untouched, as Wines just bullied at the contest and got a rare ground ball win for Port Adelaide, a stat that they're not always too good. The Eagles will be happy for the good moments of the game, and some of the youngsters will be frustrated. Oh, sorry. As some of the youngsters perform well, but overall, the Eagles fans might be a bit frustrating, just knowing that this is just as it is. It's just so hard for a young team to put on a win performance. With their only win against the season, having a team that was 2 years and 25 games more experienced than this youngest team that they were forced to pump out this week with the late changes, Liam Ryan being the late out, and obviously we heard the news about Jack Graham. So it was very impressive that they got the early. It did feel like it was unsustainable, but it was really good to see them have a hard crack at it. And, they were pretty lively. As you mentioned, we'll probably have a bit of a chat about Harley Reid again. But it did put a bit of a spark in the game and it probably did make fans nervous early on when they were going so dreadfully.
Yeah, and despite the outs, despite the injuries, the fact that they are still having a decent shot at it. Granted, Port not the greatest of teams this year, especially right now. Granted, they're a lot better the past couple of weeks, but still, the fact that the Eagles gave it a fair shot, did the best that they could. I was very impressed with Edwards in that back line. Very impressed with Gibney in that back line. I thought their midfield was a little bit better this week than maybe the past couple of weeks. Much more spirited attempt in that midfield, but
Yeah.
again, can only do so much. And their forward line presented well, but again, only can do the best of what they have available, which isn't really all that much. But they're still keeping on, and it's the fact that they're last on the ladder with only one win, but they're trying, and that's all you want to see from a young coach in Mini, to just with a young team, just trying to get more development in these kids, and until hopefully it all comes through positively.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because West Coast, they're not like other bad teams. They're actually not too bad from defensive half. Especially this year compared to last year. Their movement from the back half to the forward half is a lot better. We're seeing a lot less turnovers in that forward half of the game. But as I said, it's just that clearance. Like, I know clearances aren't everything. They may or may not be one of the more overrated stats in football, depending on who you ask. But as I said, like, it's just hard to have any stat be that bad week in, week out and perform. As I said, they've tried things to remedy that, but as I said, they just need a bigger body. They really need to hit up free agency again, get a bit more of a clearance runner, whoever actually wants to go to West Coast. I don't know who that is. But yeah, as I said, to all those fans saying that, as I said, Harley Reid, maybe he's got a bad attitude or whatnot. And I don't want to go like aggressively defending Harley because it is what it is with a player like himself. But I would not be like looking to shy away my your best clearance winner for the year where West Coast are at. You know what I mean? It's just like they've got to get some definition, and it'll still involve bringing in a player that can win a bit more consistently to help players like Harley Reid and, as I said, Clay Hall, who was trying. I was pretty impressed by his efforts, even though not all of them were coming off.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, the fact that he's actually hit a fairly solid bit of form, despite everything that this season has thrown at him, is really solid. And hopefully he's able to continue that into his third year. It'll be the last year on his current contract. For the Eagles' sake, I hope that he renews with the Eagles, but I don't blame him for wanting to come home. At least he played all 3 seasons. But I will talk about the other former draft pick, being Jason Horne-Francis, of course. He played an elite game. Just plain and simple, he was pretty elite. He kicked 3-1 from 27 disposals, 12 contested possessions, 9 inside 50, 6 clearances, 9 score involvements, 6 tackles, 14 pressure acts, and 620 meters gained. Joe Richards put on solid pressure whilst hitting the scoreboard, slotting 2-3 from 23 touches, 6 marks, 4 inside 50s, 8 score involvements, 7 tackles, 19 pressure acts, 460 meters gained. And Ollie Lord was important in backing up Sweet, getting 7 hitouts, 2 to advantage, and 9 disposals, 9 contested possessions, 2 clearances, 5 score involvements, 3 tackles, 10 pressure acts, and 5 bumper centers. Thank you for adding that minor little note for me. I appreciate that. Former number 1 draft pick Harley Reid, of course, continues some solid form. He kicked 1-2 from 27 touches, 11 contested possessions, 6 inside 50s, 6 clearances, 4 score involvements, 7 tackles, 24 pressure acts, 533 meters gained, and Harry Edwards propelled everything he could in that back line, finishing with 17 disposals, 14 of them effective, equating to 82.4% efficiency, 12 intercepts, 11 marks, with 9 of them being intercept marks, 3 inside 50s, 7 1%ers, and 5 spoils. On the injury front, Connor Rosie had a finger issue, very, very minor, so probably shouldn't miss this week's game, but maybe. And then late confirmation, but Jason Horne-Francis has a foot issue, coming off against just general soreness, I think, from this game, so he'll probably miss at least a week. Just making sure that's all good.
No, he's out for the season.
Oh, he is? Is that bad?
Yeah, that's what I said. He was out for the season.
Oh, heck. Well, there goes your finals hopes.
Nah, we're gonna do it.
We'll see. We will see.
Likely puts him out the rest of the season, and Connor Rosie is the one that's in doubt. I think he might have read the last half of that tweet for Rosie.
Yeah, fair enough. On the MRO front, Jace Burgoyne was fined $2,000 for tripping Matt Owies. Harley Reid was fined, I didn't add a dollar sign to this for some reason, but $6,250 for tripping Travis Boak. and Jason Horne-Francis was fined $1,000 for striking Jack Hutchinson. But yes, my favorite sledge of the year happened between the two former number one draft picks, and I think it's great. I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
Adds
Well,
a bit
I
of
said
character.
they're going at it, and to be honest, I mean, it is what it is. Port told him to look on the scoreboard. Harley Reid was going off and at him, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, people saying, "Oh, you can't like lip off because you're a bottom team. You should be like miserable." But I've seen miserable bottom teams with absolutely nothing going for them. They come out, they look like a shell of themselves. They get beaten by 90 points. They come back home.
Yep.
Like, I don't really get where being miserable helps a team. I do think like Harley Reid needs to like lessen his free kicks again.
Oh yeah,
Like that's
100%.
a serious problem.
100%.
But as long as he doesn't give too many free kicks away for that sort of stuff, which to be fair, I don't think he does. He doesn't like standing still. He gives a lot of marking. What do you call him?
He's like a
Marking
Richmond
area
player,
improvement,
doesn't like the
like.
stand rule.
Yeah, exactly. So he needs to work on that. But yeah, as I said, it is what it is, and you know what I mean. Like, I think Horne-Francis doesn't even care, to be honest. Like, I think it's one of the comments that I saw at the end is like, man, Harley Reid and like Jason Horne-Francis probably like hate each other on the field, but like when they get home, they probably like secretly want to hang out with each other. Like,
I feel
they
like
are pests of a feather.
I do wonder if there's like, the number one draft picks over the past 5-10 years. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a secret little group chat between them all.
Well, some of them. I can imagine like Cadman having too much beef with people, but
I definitely
just think
know.
because of the circumstances.
I can definitely guarantee you that the 8 that we drafted, from the most recent draft, definitely all have like a group chat together. Like they're a tight knit, they're a tight knit crew already, and we only have one more to debut, which I don't think will get debuted until 26, which is fine. But you know,
But yeah, I think for this one, it's also just funny because I think there is a bit of irony, or maybe it's deliberate. Where, as I said, like Harley Reid, you know what I mean? Like he knows how annoying like all this go home chat is. So I think for him, it was also a bit of stress relief. You know what I mean?
oh, absolutely.
It's like
he was having a bit of fun with it. That's all.
Maybe a bit hypocritical, but like who cares? As I said, he's a teenager. There's stuff he's got to work on, but like as I said, considering the output that he's giving out, and considering that like a bit of lip, like if that's all the trouble he has early in his career, like who cares? I get that it could get worse. I get like coaching like needs to be on top of it, but like let coaches do that. That's not our problem.
It's no different to the veteran players still doing sledges. This one is just got caught on camera and it's a lot funnier.
Yeah, it's not like Zach Butters doesn't go around mouthing off.
Oh yeah, we all know
like Connie Rosie does, and he's our captain, so
we all know that they do it. We just don't know what they say most of the time. Anyway, let's jump over to the games ahead, because again, more 9 games to look at. Got to run through them. Starting it off with a Thursday night game. For some reason, Essendon keep getting Thursday night games. Why are they getting the premier time slots when they're not good? We don't know. But this is at Marvel Stadium. The Bombers hosting the Giants.
I might go with a nice dinner with my friend on Thursday. That's what I mentioned before. That's what I look forward to. The game, not so much. We'll be going to a Sporting Globe, so we'll probably watch the match. He has a nice discount, which is good because I'll probably offer to buy him dinner since it was his birthday. But
fair enough.
In terms of the game itself, it's really hard to see. The only problem that Giants have at the moment is like maybe the defense, a bit of the center work. But obviously Essendon have lost a few players in that middle of the ground. So unless this just randomly turns into a very dour contest, you would imagine that the Giants would just walk out of it. They've got nothing. Like if Cadman firing the way he is, along with Hogan and Callum Brown just popping up here and there, like Essendon just don't have the tools to defend that. So yeah, I can't see this not being straightforward. The only thing is like how big do you the margin. Do you want to take that risk, put it like at a 30-40, try and get it correct, or be a bit more conservative? That's it, really.
I want to hope that Essendon are able to shut down a bit of the Giants' run, but I don't expect it to be close. I maybe at least minimum 30 points. I think minimum 30 points.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But as I said, in recent history, Essendon did beat them last year, which was a bit of a surprise. That was earlier in the year when Essendon were going well, and just looking back a bit of a trip down memory lane was that massive flogging. Giants by 126 points when Essendon were trying to make finals.
That's right.
Which pretty much put them out of contention. So, yeah. Sorry to bring that up, Essendon fans, but yeah. There's not really much we have to say about that game, do we?
Yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. However, the Friday night clash, not so straightforward. Up at the Gabba, it's the Lions hosting the Dogs.
Yeah, and as I said, we've said that the Lions have been fairly ruthless, trying to attack off turnover. But I don't think that the Western Bulldogs are completely out of it. It'll be their last really, really tough game. Their only away game left in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Or I should say game out of Melbourne. And, I think this is their last top 4 encounter. I might be wrong. We'll go through it next week.
Yeah, we will go through it next week.
But yeah, the Lions have been fairly consistent. They did get the wood over them last time they played this year. And yeah, you just expect that, again, I wouldn't say that the defense would necessarily be a problem, but more so their ball use coming out of defense. Because again, if the Lions hunt for those early intercepts, the Bulldogs will be in a bit of trouble because, again, we know often turnovers lead to one-on-one matchups. Bulldogs, I mentioned before, are terrible one-on-one matchups, and that's where they might look to be it. But if the Bulldogs can get their midfield involved, maybe they even take advantage of the fact that the small forward, the loss of someone like it's Answorth, the one that got injured, isn't it?
Yes, it was Answorth.
So, take advantage of that. I know that Starcevic hasn't really had the best year, especially compared to last year. So, I don't know. So, as I said, it may not be directly from like a small forward. They don't really have too many that play pure small forward role. But, like a player like maybe your Garcia goes forward, maybe even a Freer. Put him forward, Davidson, Sanders. They'll all spend a good bunch of time up the ground. And yeah, maybe if the ball hits the ground, they might do a bit better. But you still think that the Lions have this?
Yeah, I expect the Lions to have this. I definitely think this is probably the match where the Dogs' defense will get tested massively, because the Lions continue to be creative with their forward line and their entries and how they score. So it'll be really interesting to see how that matchup goes. Just gut feel, I'd probably want to go Lions on this one. But I wouldn't mind seeing the Bulldogs take the win from them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it will make the 8 race a bit more interesting, that's for sure. And as I said, the next match, there's one result that will make it very interesting. And another result that will make Hawks fans breathe a sigh of relief.
Very true, because we're going down to Tasmania next. One of the few matches. Actually, no, I think Hawks haven't declared what they'll do once Tassie comes in yet. But they will continue to play games down in Tasmania for the time being. And this week they host Port Adelaide.
Yeah, in Launceston. And as I mentioned, for the Hawks, this is a very good chance for them to get that monkey off their back. Obviously, the 3 losses in 2024. 2 losses. Probably wouldn't include the women's loss in this.
It's a morale thing.
Yeah, well, it is. And obviously that pretty comprehensive win earlier in the year, sort of out of nowhere, from a pretty dreadful first half of the season for Port. So, it's going to be very, very interesting. Again, Port's been a bit up and down with the ability to defend the smalls. So we've seen, as I mentioned, Ginnivan and
Watson?
Ginnivan and the wizard, whatever his name
Watson.
actually is. Watson, thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear the first time.
No, you're right.
Yeah, being more involved. So I think those will be the two more important players for Hawthorn. Obviously, it's the question of will Georgiades continue his good form against a very good Toll defense? They sort of caught him out of sorts last time, but I don't think they'll again. And yeah, it's that inside midfield battle. Port, very, very strong in that regard. Hawthorn, not so much. So, if that gets ahead, Port gets the win. But obviously on the we've seen Port get spanked a few times in transition. So on the flip side, if McDonald, D'Ambrosio, Morrison, Dylan Moore, especially if they get involved, might be a bit of a tough ask for them, especially in those breezy conditions up at UTAS. Port did not like that stadium at all when they played. I think it was the Western Bulldogs up there, so that might also be against them. So you still think Hawthorn should get the job done. But, as I said, there's a cheeky chance. It may be a bit circumstantial, but...
Definitely a cheeky chance. You're not wrong with that. But just form, performance, gut feel, matchups. I want to go Hawthorn on this one.
Like, even that slow slide against the Eagles, it's not like Port weren't trying. It's not like they were coming up that lethargically. They haven't been too much this year. It's just execution.
Yeah. It really
and yeah, as I said, unfortunately, UTAS, if your execution's off, more so than your opponent, you can get punished very easily. So, especially when you get those moments. So, yeah. I'll be tipping Port, as I always say, but yeah, it's probably safer bet for Hawthorn.
Good luck. Speaking of luck, Sydney are hosting North Melbourne at the SCG as our next game. North definitely need all the luck they can get because they no longer have a ruckman to face Brodie Grundy.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know who their backup ruckman is.
I think
would they just be playing Finbar?
It was initially meant to be Coleman Jones, but I'm pretty sure he's still injured. So it might have to be Finbar Malley to come in.
Could be. Maybe the luck's in their side. Maybe they got luck of the hour. But yeah, as I mentioned, it was already a bit suspect, Sydney being so strong at getting scores from their midfield. I think if it's for the run in the finals, they want their tolls to be performing fairly strongly as well. But, a bit better movement, especially on the outside. You would expect than the Kangaroos. And yeah, it's going to be tough for them. As I said, man, Sydney's defense isn't that good. They could definitely go with them in a shootout. It's just if their midfield allows enough entries, for them. And if the differential isn't that bad, it shouldn't be too terrible. But otherwise, I just see Sydney comfortably winning this.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sydney should take a lot of percentage out of this if all their points are firing, especially if they're talls and just all their key players up forward really convert well. They should successfully get their run off their halfback and through their wings. Pretty convincingly. I don't think they're gonna have too much of a hard matchup on that front. So yeah, I think Sydney comprehensively on this one. As much as I would like to see North give a decent performance and have a decent fight, it should be Sydney all the way.
Yep.
All right, jumping over to our next match at the MCG, it is Carlton and Melbourne, and honestly, I want to give Carlton something. I really do, but Melbourne, they're just in much better form. They don't have as much injuries, so they're performing really well. And yeah, it's just going to be the D's, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be the D's, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I mean, well, not interesting. Honestly, the Saturday night is pretty awful.
Oh yeah, it is.
For this week. We'll talk about the other match in a second. But Melbourne, their midfields look so much more improved. Gawns look to be coming back after a bit of a quieter spell. And as for Carlton, they've just looked dismal every time they've hit the park. Turnovers are plenty. Their back half gets caught out a lot, even though on paper they're not too bad. And yeah, as I said, I don't think Melbourne's lack of forward line will bother too much because unless they get a set shot, Carlton not bad in the. So you'd imagine it will be Melbourne, but there may be a bit of faffing around to get to this result. Either Melbourne comfortably or this game will be a contender for an unwatchable mess.
Yeah,
Won't be worse. I think Essendon and Richmond
last
has
week.
to be the worst game.
At least of the
Like,
year, I think so.
well, of the year,
Unfortunately,
sorry.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, for the viewers' sake, we hope that was the worst of it. So
Yeah, we're hoping
yeah.
that no other worst of the worst kind of games occur, but there's still time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think yeah, Melbourne should convincingly win that. I definitely hope that Carlton show some sort of life, whether that's with injuries coming back or just some sort of run of form may suddenly appear. It'd be nice. But yeah, I want to put Melbourne on that one. So we'll just quickly move on. Otherwise, over to the West at Optus Stadium, where the Eagles will host Richmond. And honestly, I know this is technically a spoon bowl, but I really like that could actually be a genuinely good matchup.
Oh, as I said, recent like the last week, there's at least a reason for fans to be optimistic. Obviously, Richmond have an okay supporter base in Perth, so they'll be encouraged to go along. I think it might be a miserable night, unfortunately. It's been a bit of rain in WA, but as for the game, it'll be interesting. As I said, I think in a dry match, you would probably favour West Coast, their ability to be more efficient in the forward line. Will make up for the fact that obviously Richmond should win the centre clearances. I know Richmond are not the best clearance team. I think differential they're about just under even, but nowhere near as bad as West Coast. But yeah, as I said, it's just that will Richmond be able to score, especially since West Coast defence has looked a lot better than what we thought it might be under. Well, we've known McGovern basically.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I'll give the edge to West Coast, but if it's rainy, I think that will suit Richmond, and they might get their next win of the year. Might be a weather tip change.
Yeah, I genuinely think, as much as I want to back Richmond in completely, I probably will tip them anyway. This is genuinely a 50-50 kind of matchup. It does suck that Lawler won't be out there because I think it'd be fun for him to play on Harley Reid. Although those two, I think, would get along a lot better than Harley Reid may do with Horn Francis, at least on field. But yeah, this is going to be a very interesting matchup. On paper, Richmond are a lot more set up and should, quote unquote, win in a lot of the matchups and a lot of like the stats for the most part. But our forward line is definitely the big issue, where West Coast defense is their best part right now. Or granted, it's their best part currently because they don't have much else to really go off of.
Well, if they get Ryan back, it's probably swings back to their forward line. But yeah,
True.
It's just anything that is in the midfield just looks better in comparison.
This is also the last week where we won't have Bolter. He officially comes back out of he comes back for two reasons. One, he's officially out of his curfew by the start of next week. And two, our game after this one is Sunday afternoon, so he wouldn't be on a curfew anyway. So that's so we lose Bolter again for this one, which is fine. So we might go in mostly unchanged, honestly. Maybe one or two changes. I would say Sonsi comes out. I don't know who would come in. Maybe Olga comes back in, which would be nice. I think Trezise will start in the 22, especially now that our backline looks so much more settled with him in it. And we have most of our injuries back from our backline, which is good. it'll just be midfield to forward is where my biggest concern is for us. So otherwise,
Yeah.
definitely a 50-50 still.
All right. And I want to finish off with a Sarek Weird prediction. And I've gone a bit left of field for this one because I haven't really been thinking about
You're
it
doing
too
it for
much. But we got
this
to get a bit of
game
interest
of all
into these dead
games.
rubbers. I am going to rank these for Saturday night performers first to second in terms of like goals to behind ratios, best to worst.
Okay.
I'm going to start maybe a bit controversially, West Coast at the top. I think they'll be the most accurate. Then I think, I don't think Carlton will win, but I think they'll be the next best. Melbourne and then Richmond. That's the way I see it. But who knows? Who knows?
Well, majority of our
So,
games that we've won, we've won 4. I think at least half of them we've won by kicking more behinds than goals. So you're probably not wrong in that regard.
yeah. Nah, exactly. So, but yeah, as I said, worst ratio. So, as I said, scoring factor will become scoring shots will be a small part of it as well.
Yes.
But, yeah, Melbourne and Carlton, that could switch. That might also be important to how A, watchable, and B, the result of that game might go. But yeah, as I said, Carlton, they get a few more goals, but they just need to get those set shots.
Yeah.
Ground ball, it's more just the lack of shots. So that's why I still put them high, but I don't think they'll get a particularly big score.
No, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's jump over to our Sunday games now. Starting in Geelong, where the Cats will host the Saints. And do you think, after what St Kilda managed to pull off against the Swans, do you think they might be able to surprise the Cats the same way, or are the Cats just going to be too good for them?
Well, is it going to be another case of a GWS case where the Saints the last 2 times have managed to pull off upsets against Geelongs, and the one before that, St Kilda were absolutely arse, but still managed a fairly solid performance. So they've kept with them. There must be something in that matchup. Honestly, it's because they're similar profiles. Again, 2 teams like to kick the ball long from halfback.
Yes.
Like to create sporadic opportunities. Obviously, Geelong's just better at dropping their eyes and hitting up targets. So I think there's a chance, but I still think it's Geelong. Because I think the fact that Neil's had a pretty good season and Saints just don't have that second tall defender means that, either Cameron or Neil should be allowed a bit of leeway.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, I mean, it's the Saints.
Yeah.
I don't have that much faith in them to have 2 good weeks in a row. They are 4th worst on the ladder for a reason.
True.
Or at least I think anyway.
Yeah, they're 15th at the moment, so you're not wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's just it is what it is. But I do hope that they are at least able to get a good outside game. Yeah, as I said, yeah, I reckon it'll still be under 30 points. I don't think they'll get mauled or anything. It's just, yeah, as I said, unless things really, really go their way. And even last time, we did see that they did run out of steam after a very solid start that game. Again, throwback when we were actually at Adelaide. I think you were flying in. I was watching the game. So
yes, that is correct. I had landed about maybe halfway. No, actually, the game was already over. I think by the time I landed, or it might have. Must have it was on our flight out.
I think it was halfway when you left.
Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday night game, so that makes a little bit more sense to me. But yes, their last matchup was certainly a lot more interesting. One, I mean, it was at Marvel for one, which is why it was probably so much more interesting. Because it's a ground that Geelong really don't like, which isn't really surprising. But yeah, because this one is down in Geelong, I definitely do favour the Cats a lot more. I think just by basis, I think the Cats are having a much better second half, especially with Neil having a much better performances in recent weeks. Granted, Cameron still doing Cameron things. He's always going to contribute fairly positively in some way, but Saints defense just don't have enough down there to really defend those two. So I think it's just going to be Geelong. Yeah.
Well, that too, in combination with everything else, because
Very
obviously
true.
they've got Myers. He's still having. Yeah, it's probably been a bit under the radar this season. He's had a pretty good back half of the year. I don't know. With a few other players dropping off, you don't almost consider him All-Australian, but maybe that's controversial. I'm not sure.
Could be a little smoky because there's definitely been a lot of Geelong players this year who are definitely in All-Australian contention.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll wait and see about that. But yeah, as for this, as I said, it's just a lot more pathways to victory for Geelong. I think we can both agree.
Yeah, 100%. All right, on to our next set of games, and these next two are going to be extremely interesting because they relate to the shape of the top 8. So we're going to start with Collingwood hosting Fremantle at the MCG. Fremantle get another run on the Hello Turf, something that they definitely need because they don't get all that much experience out there. But this is going to be, now that the Freo have this like really, really solid run of form, even if they're not scoring super high, it's going to get tested against the number 1 team in the comp.
Yeah, and I think this is where the test of that forward efficiency, because if I don't want to say they mucked around with against Hawthorn, but it didn't click. But Hawthorn, they can get a better run off halfback, but Collingwood just base their game off turnovers.
They do.
They will burn you once they get the chance. And I think that's the main thing, because as I said, Freo, when they hit targets going inside 50, absolutely fantastic. But their retention, when it's not a lower down target, is pretty abysmal. They're not really a ground level team. If they do, it's from stoppage. So I think that's where Freo are going to get their pains against Collingwood. But defensively, though, they should be able to stick out. I do think that they've lifted a bit. So I reckon this could be a very grindy contest, and yeah, it might be a tough one because, as much as you put your faith in Collingwood obviously being good for so long, you wouldn't put too much stock into the Gold Coast loss, but there is enough about Freo where, they match up well. I think Collingwood like a bit more aggressive teams, but Freo do calculate a bit more, which I think will help them.
Yes.
So I do think they're a chance, but I do think that this is like a sneaky 60-40 Collingwood's favour, where I think a few people might think that just Freo automatically lose this one, but
well,
I got a bit of faith.
Collingwood's defense does open up a little bit with the loss of Jeremy Howe. I don't know how long he's going to be out for.
Yeah, exactly.
So that opens them up a little bit in terms of intercept. So Darcy Moore will likely be doing a lot more on that intercept role, which he does anyway.
Exactly.
He's always been very good at it. But yeah.
And you got to watch the team list because, as I said, Big Billy Frampton, if they lose out and Frampton's still out, that's, then they've got to cover Amos, they've got to cover
Tracy and Voss.
Tracy and Voss and Jackson when he goes forward. Not so much Darcy, but he did catch that clutch goal last week. It is a lot of tall targets. And, it's like then you get to Collingwood's depth where they're either, playing Quaynor on a tall or something like that, or maybe putting in is Howe's Collingwood? I can never remember.
Yeah, Howe is Collingwood.
I think he is, yeah. No, Howe's the other one.
Oh.
The defender. That might be Melbourne, actually. There's another Collingwood defender that's just okay.
I think Howe's is Melbourne. I remember seeing him on a list or something the other day. I can't remember.
Yeah, anyway, so yeah, Collingwood have another, but you get into depth levels at that position. So the Freo Tolls, just watch out for them. Especially if there's a bit of, if it's a nice sunny day at the G, and B, you know what I mean? If, what are you going to say? Oh, yeah, if the team sheets don't go their way. I do think Freo have a sneaky chance to make it 2 in a row. But you're still back in Collingwood.
Oh yeah, 100%. You would at least
it's just experience versus inexperience, really.
Trust in the system, trust in close games.
Yeah.
All right. On to our last game, and what a game this is going to be. The Adelaide Crows hosting the Suns over in Adelaide, of course. This this is a real. Oh, I know we say like a couple of these top 8 clashes are going to be real tests. This is the test of the test. Like, this is the one to watch, I think.
Yeah, and it was a pretty entertaining contest last time. Obviously, the Crows maybe a bit hard done by the Isaac Rankin running too far
yes.
incident earlier in the year. They lost by a point. Still probably should have made it a draw. They had a lot of chances to get that final behind, but just couldn't find a way. The Suns are very inaccurate in that contest, though. So, again, it's going to be a tough one because you would imagine it's the Crows just by virtue of, it was pretty much a coin flip at the Suns' home advantage. And not that much has changed. I think the Suns have actually been fairly consistent through most of the year, except that random game that they dropped against Richmond. As for Adelaide, so have they. Just a few matches where they haven't quite been up to snuff. Their back half intercept goes on, but again, it'll be that ball use. We've mentioned that Gold Coast back half doesn't quite link up all that well. So if Adelaide gets the territory, they get a bit ahead at times. I think it will be a lot easier for them to score than the Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, if Butts is out and, maybe they can get one of the forwards going out of King, Long, Graham and... not Graham. Walters and Reed.
Isn't Humphreys up there as well?
I think Humphreys is injured. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. Either that or he just had a quiet game against Collingwood.
I can't remember either.
No, he did play against Collingwood.
No, he's just quiet then. That's okay. It happens.
Yeah. So, what was I saying? So as I said, I mean, they could. I think it will still be a high scoring contest. I just think it's like, time, getting a game going. And as I said, just the way that's been going. But I think what we want to see is Adelaide's midfield. It's stepped up from the last time they played the Suns.
Mm-hmm.
And the Suns look very dangerous there. So head to head, that'll be a very interesting contest to watch. Maybe a lot of goals from stoppage scored, as well as from intercept. So we'll wait and see. But it should be an absolutely fantastic contest. I'm probably the match I most want to see from the round, and there's some pretty good contests there.
Yeah, this is a really brilliant game to actually end the round on. And at the moment, I want to lean towards the Crows, to be honest, but I think the loss of Jordan Butts is gonna be a lot bigger than we might initially think, because he's been so impactful for that defense. He's one of their key cogs, and I'm not entirely sure what they have in terms of depth in being able to fill for him. But like he does so much work down there that it's going to be really hard to replace. And you want to hope that the Suns can take advantage of that, maybe. But if Adelaide's midfield is ready to take on the challenge of Anderson and Rao, then it's going to be one hell of a 50-50 matchup.
Yeah, exactly.
So honestly, maybe a coin flip on this one. Again, Adelaide are also missing... Adelaide. The Suns will also be missing Miller. So that doesn't help their midfield. But it's not all doom and gloom. Suns have players to be able to fill because he's been in and out for quite a lot of this season. So they know that they can fill that role. But it's a little bit harder than that for the Crows. But I want to give the edge to the Crows, at least for the time being.
Yeah, it's probably who I would have the soft tip for. Just again, maybe that's one that changes on team sheet.
Yeah, team sheet, maybe a bit of weather. It could make a difference as well. Again, the Suns are a little bit better at playing ground level because they only really have King as their main lead tall, and the rest are kind of slightly shorter than him, otherwise ground players. So it's not too bad. But
I guess both sides are a bit similar. It's not technically the ground players in their forward half. It's the midfielders.
True, it is the midfielders that push up.
So as much you could say that for a Miller, if he plays Humphreys, as you said before, or even Anderson, you could probably say the same thing about Rankin and Dawson. So
this is true.
That might be more as even.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, that rounds out round 19. So next week is obviously round 20, the final 5 rounds of the season prior to finals. So in lieu of that, we will be doing a bonus episode next week as well, going through the run home for every single team, their final 5 matches. Maybe for the ones, especially in the top 9, we might take a bit of a guess as to where we think they will finish. Bottom 9, maybe not so much. We might leave that and we'll just go, hopes and dreams for what we want to see out of those teams, that sort of thing. We shall see. But until then, thank you all so much for coming to hang out, coming to chat, coming to chill, coming to watch, coming to listen, coming to like and subscribe. I'm not doing too much this week, but I will be streaming. So please go check out my socials for all of that. Check out podcast socials for updates and things of that nature. Yeah. I hope you all have a wonderful week. We will try to have a wonderful week. Hopefully the games are all to your liking. Hopefully your team will win. Port Adelaide, not so much, but you should try. I just want to be a little mean at the end. It's fun. But yes, thank you all so much. And we will see you all next week for episode 68 of the podcast. So until then, take care.